Chapter 3870. Upon seeing the terrifying existences in the hall, Lin Feng's expression turned uglier than crying. He had actually come to the meeting place of these terrifying existences. If he had known this would happen, he would have hidden in the Donghuang Bell. At least, he wouldn't have had to face these terrifying existences. Lin Feng wanted to cry, but had no tears. Sorry for disturbing everyone. Just pretend that I'm not here. You can continue with the meeting. Lin Feng said embarrassedly before slipping out. However, now, Lin Feng couldn't leave just because he wanted to. Someone blocked Lin Feng's path. The Lord of the Undead looked at Lin Feng indifferently and said, I didn't expect you to appear here. Do you know what will happen to you? Lin Feng said, Look at what you're saying. Aren't we old friends? Don't old friends usually drink, chat, and reminisce when they meet? After drinking and chatting, they go back to their own homes. When the Lord of the Undead heard Lin Feng's words, Bufan rolled his eyes. He glared at Lin Feng and said, Who's your old friend? I just want to kill you. I think it's better for me to eat this brat. At this moment, the terrifying woman with a rotten body said. She stood up and stared at Lin Feng with her evil eyes. She was staring at Lin Feng with her evil eyes. Those eyes were definitely a pair of heart-palpitating eyes. They were even scarier than the eyes of a malicious spirit. Lin Feng said, Can I trouble you to become prettier? You're very scary right now. It's fine if you scare others, but it's not good if you scare the plants. You are courting death, the woman screamed in anger. Although she was extremely ugly, she loved to ask others if she was beautiful. Now, Lin Feng was mocking her for being ugly. Naturally, the woman couldn't accept it. She was filled with murderous intent toward Lin Feng. She wanted nothing more than to tear Lin Feng apart. Whoosh! The woman attacked Lin Feng. Her sharp claws flickered with a terrifying cold light as she clawed at Lin Feng. That claw was about to touch Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng summoned the 3 pure 8 trigrams diagram. Women were classified as corpses and were perfectly countered by Lin Feng's 3 pure 8 trigrams diagram. Dazzling divine light shot out from the 3 pristine 8 trigrams diagram and blasted toward the woman. Bang! Along with the violent sound of collision, the divine light from the 3 pure 8 trigrams diagram collided with the woman, producing a muffled sound of collision. The woman was sent flying. Lin Feng knew how terrifying this woman was. Back then, so many Emperor, Lord-level powerhouses were no match for her. From this, one could see how terrifying this woman was. However, all things in the world had a counter to each other, and she just had to be restrained by Lin Feng's 3 pure 8 trigrams diagram. Just like how the Lord of the Undead was also restrained by Lin Feng's 3 pure 8 trigrams diagram. Therefore, he couldn't get close to Lin Feng at all. 3 pure 8 trigrams diagram. This thing actually fell into your hands. The woman glanced at the 3 pure 8 trigrams diagram and then looked at the Lord of the Undead. She seemed to know that the 3 pure 8 trigrams diagram should belong to the Lord of the Undead. This boy's methods are a little strange. He took the 3 pure 8 trigrams diagram. The Lord of the Undead said with a gloomy expression. He wasn't embarrassed to say anything. More people attack him. He's dead for sure. The woman said as she looked at Lin Feng eerily. There were many powerhouses here. In the woman's opinion, Lin Feng naturally couldn't escape. Even if he could borrow the power of the 3 pure 8 trigrams diagram, Lin Feng couldn't escape. Where are my arrows? The son of Donghuang stood up and looked at Lin Feng indifferently. Previously, Lin Feng had taken an arrow, although that arrow was one of the magic treasures that nailed the son of Donghuang to death. But now, The 5 arrows had become the son of Dong Huang's magic treasures. Lin Feng took an arrow. The son of Dong Huang naturally had a deep impression of Lin Feng. Many people were surprised. They didn't expect that even the son of Dong Huang would have a treasure taken away by Lin Feng. This was truly inconceivable. Sold, Lin Feng said. He naturally didn't tell the truth, because the arrow was in Lin Feng's time and space. Lin Feng was just playing with the son of Dong Huang. Anyway, the current situation was extremely bad for him. Since it was already so bad, Lin Feng naturally wouldn't beg for mercy. Even if he did, these people wouldn't let him go. Lin Feng was very clear about this. So in Lin Feng's opinion, playing with these people before he died was quite interesting. Of course, there might be a chance for things to turn around. He might not necessarily die in the hands of these people. You're courting death. The son of Dong Huang was filled with killing intent as he attacked Lin Feng with his palm. The ugly woman, the lord of the undead, and some terrifying corpses and undead all stood up and surrounded Lin Feng. These powerful existences attacked together to suppress the 3 pure 8 trigrams diagram. The 3 pure 8 trigrams diagram couldn't block their attacks. Lin Feng knew that the situation was very bad. In this dangerous time and space, he took out the holy monk's skeleton. After the skeleton appeared, the holy light surged and rushed out in all directions. Bang, bang, bang. Sounds of violent collisions could be heard. The terrifying light emitted from the holy monk's skeleton repelled the terrifying existences. The holy monk's skeleton had a great origin. The lord of the undead seemed to have recognized the holy monk's skeleton and showed an extremely fearful expression. It's his skeleton. The ugly woman frowned. The ugly woman frowned. She actually recognized this skeleton as well. That's right, the lord of the undead nodded. This kid is extraordinary. The son of Dong Huang sneered. The son of Dong Huang sneered. Lin Feng said, as the saying goes, no discord, no concord. Why don't we become friends? The terrifying existences looked at Lin Feng with ridicule. One of the undead creatures said, ask the Eastern Emperor Bell to make a move. If the Dong Huang Bell makes a move, it can definitely kill this kid. Hearing that, Lin Feng's face turned green. The Dong Huang Bell's power was too heaven-defying. It had never made a move before. If the Dong Huang Bell made a move, for Lin Feng, it could be a disaster. Lin Feng knew this very well. That was why Lin Feng's expression was extremely serious. All right, then let's ask the Dong Huang Bell to make a move. The son of Dong Huang said. At this moment, a woman walked into the palace. When he saw the woman, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. This woman. Chapter 3871. In the past, Lin Feng was the Red World Fairy's love tribulation. Although the Red World Fairy used an ingenious method to resolve the love tribulation, she had nothing to do with Lin Feng anymore. However, how could some things, especially karma and marriage, be so easily severed? The master of fate, Lin Feng, and the Red World Fairy had been entangled for a long time. Perhaps even the Red World Fairy herself was not very clear. Even if the Red World Fairy's understanding of fate and karma was incomparable to that of ordinary people. But as the saying goes, those involved could not see clearly. Those on the sidelines could see clearly. That was the principle. Who are you? The group of terrifying existences who wanted to ask the Dong Huang Bell to deal with Lin Feng stopped. They looked at the Red World Fairy, the uninvited guest. Someone asked in a deep voice. They wanted to know the identity of the Red World Fairy. The Red World Fairy did not answer the other party's question. Instead, she said, I'm here to take something. Take something? Who do you think you are? You actually came to us to take something? Go to hell. The ugly woman screamed. She was jealous of the Red World Fairy. She was incomparably jealous of the Red World Fairy's beauty, because she was too ugly. Therefore, she was jealous of all women who were more beautiful than her. When she saw the Red World Fairy, she wanted to destroy the Red World Fairy. Therefore, she did not hesitate to make a move. Her sharp claws were like the sharpest weapons, as if they could tear through everything. The void was instantly pierced through. This woman's cultivation was unimaginable. It was so terrifying that it made people tremble. God said, "Light will dominate the world, and darkness will fall into the cycle of reincarnation." The Red World Fairy said with an indifferent expression. Which God said that? The ugly woman sneered. Her sharp claws were about to grab the Red World Fairy's neck. "I said it myself," Venerable Red Dust said with an indifferent expression. After hearing the Red World Fairy's last sentence, Yi Zichen nodded. Lin Feng almost spat out a mouthful of blood. The Red World Fairy was truly a sentimental person. The corner of the ugly woman's mouth twitched violently. Immediately after, his gaze turned cold, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. She even felt that her claws had already touched the Red World Fairy's skin. She became excited because she felt that the Red World Fairy was about to be killed by her. But at this moment, a large amount of golden holy light gushed out from the Red World Fairy's body. The golden, holy light shone on the ugly woman's body. Chi. The ugly woman's body actually started to burn. This was an extremely terrifying scene. A foul smell was emitted from the ugly woman's body. It was nauseating. The ugly woman had no choice but to retreat quickly. There was no way he could get close to the Red World Fairy. Pure, young, immortal blood. What a powerful bloodline. The son of Dong Huang showed an extremely shocked expression. Lin Feng's heart couldn't help but tremble slightly. The pure, young, immortal blood should be a special bloodline. It should be the bloodline of the Red World Fairy. But an existence like the Red World Fairy should have more than one bloodline. At the very least, she should have a twin bloodline. She could even reach the level of 4 symbols bloodline, like him. Of course, this was only Lin Feng's deduction. Lin Feng didn't know the specifics. After all, everything about the Red World Fairy was still very unfamiliar to Lin Feng. "I'm here to take something. Don't stop me," the Red World Fairy said coldly. All these years, the Red World Fairy seemed to have been looking for something special. Therefore, she went to many places and appeared in many worlds. Lin Feng remembered that the Red World Fairy even wanted to enter the underworld. He just didn't know if her trip to the underworld was smooth. Back then, Lin Feng had only entered the first layer of the underworld. But the underworld was not just one layer of heaven. The lower one went, the more terrifying it was. He didn't know which layer of the underworld the Red World Fairy went to. Lin Feng felt that what the Red World Fairy was looking for might be related to the 5 decays of heaven and man, the war of extinction, and the collapse of the era. She should be preparing for some upcoming crisis in advance. Then you've come to the wrong place. There's no return here. The Lord of the Undead sneered. Another powerful Een corpse said, "The pure young immortal blood is a good thing for us. We only need to drink her blood, and we can transform from Een corpses to real cultivators. When the time comes, we will derive new flesh and blood to replace this stinking corpse." All the terrifying existences stood up and surrounded Lin Feng and the Red World Fairy. Now, their target had turned to the Red World Fairy. "Then let's kill her together." The son of the Eastern Emperor said. The Red World Fairy's pure young immortal body was the greatest restraint against these Een corpses. Although these Een corpses were powerful, they wouldn't dare to approach the Red World Fairy in normal times. But now they had the advantage in numbers. After joining forces, their magic power was connected, which was where their confidence came from. Waves of terrifying aura spread out. These powerful corpses began to circulate their magic power and display their supreme skills. All kinds of terrifying magic power blasted toward the Red World Fairy. When those magic powers gathered together, they were too powerful and made people despair. At this time, an illusory world appeared behind the Red World Fairy's body. "I come from hell. All spirits bow down." Honored immortal Hong Chen's voice was faintly discernible. A mysterious existence appeared in the illusory world behind him. It could be vaguely seen that the mysterious existence was a woman. That woman wore an imperial robe and a crown on her head. She looked like the ancient human emperor of the human race. "I am the human emperor, and I will enlighten the people," the empress said. When her voice fell, endless golden light surged out from her body. The golden light instantly dissolved the attacks of a group of powerful existences. Then, the golden light swept across the group of powerful existences. The group of powerful existences was sent flying. Slash! The Empress attacked, slashing out rays of cold golden light. She wanted to kill the group of terrifying existences. The group of terrifying existences wanted to struggle, but they were suppressed in an instant. They couldn't break free at all. They could only watch helplessly as the golden beams of light slashed towards them. "Lord Eastern Emperor Bell, save us," the group of people hurriedly begged for mercy. At this time, the Eastern Emperor Bell, which had been motionless, suddenly emitted a terrifying aura. The Eastern Emperor Bell gently shook the void. Suddenly, the attack of the Empress was broken by the Eastern Emperor Bell. A cold voice came from the Eastern Emperor Bell. "You're here to ask for that thing? But you've come too early. You're simply courting death by coming here." Chapter 3872. Lin Feng squinted his eyes as he looked at the Dong Huang Bell that had suddenly enlarged. The existence that had just spoken should be the deity of the Dong Huang Bell. However, the deity of the Dong Huang Bell had clearly not awakened when it first appeared. Even when Lin Feng planned to collect the Dong Huang Bell, the deity of the Dong Huang Bell had not awakened. Because if the deity of the Dong Huang Bell had awakened, with Lin Feng's ability, it was impossible for him not to sense it. Therefore, Lin Feng was certain that the deity of the Dong Huang Bell had not awakened. A supreme treasure like the Dong Huang Bell could only be refined before the deity had awakened. Even if the deity had awakened, the deity would have seen that what was done could not be undone. Even if he had any objections, there was nothing he could do. Once the deity had awakened, there was no way to refine such a supreme treasure. The deity was simply too powerful, enough to destroy everything. Moreover, the deity could control the Dong Huang Bell. The Dong Huang Bell could release a terrifying attack at any time. "Dong Huang Bell, I'll let you have a taste of the supreme technique of the human race, the human Emperor Fist." Suddenly, Venerable Hong Chen's voice became faintly discernible, as if it was coming from a place beyond the endless space-time. The shadow of the Empress behind the Red World Fairy actually merged with the Red World Fairy. At that moment, Lin Feng felt that the Red World Fairy seemed to have transformed into the Empress. He even had a feeling that the mysterious Empress was immortal, Venerable Hong Chen. This was an extremely strange feeling, but this feeling was so strong. The Red World Fairy was the Empress, and the Empress was the Red World Fairy. Lin Feng did not know why he had such a feeling in his heart, but he could not get rid of it. "Human Emperor Fist." The Red World Fairy's voice resounded in the hall. Endless holy light surged, and the Red World Fairy seemed to have turned into an immortal human emperor. She threw a punch at the Dong Huang Bell that was descending from the sky. Dong! An earth-shattering sound suddenly rang out. That voice was so loud that even the apathetic could hear it. The void seemed to be on the verge of shattering. Not only was the Dong Huang bell unable to harm the Red World Fairy, but it was also repelled by the Red World Fairy. That's impossible. The group of horrifying creatures had a look of disbelief on their faces. They knew how terrifying the Eastern Emperor bell was, but now someone had actually shaken the Dong Huang bell. It was unbelievable. It was like a legend. However, all of this had happened before their eyes, so they had no choice but to believe it. The Red World Fairy stepped forward and threw a punch at the Dong Huang bell. Roar! At this moment, a dragon's roar resounded throughout the world. The 99 divine dragons on the Dong Huang bell awakened and started to swim around the bell. When the divine dragons were revived, the power of the Dong Huang bell also increased significantly. There seemed to be a mysterious connection between those mystical dragons and the Dong Huang bell. It could increase the power of the Dong Huang bell. Bang! The Red World Fairy's fist once again landed on the Dong Huang bell. It was a pink fist with fair skin. Immortal Venerable Hong Chun had always had the appearance of a 16 or 17-year-old girl. But who would have thought that she would be so powerful? The Dong Huang bell was once again shaken by the Red World Fairy. The Red World Fairy seemed to have truly transformed into the Empress of the human race. She had mastered the supreme Tao. She was invincible. Bang, bang, bang. The Red World Fairy's attacks were relentless. Punch after punch landed on the Dong Huang bell. The Red World Fairy continuously threw out 36 punches. The Dong Huang bell could no longer withstand it. It kept shrinking, and its aura was about to dissipate. Hand it over. This is the last time I'm warning you. The Red World Fairy said coldly. She was extremely domineering. However, she had the strength to make him so domineering. All right, I can give it to you, the Dong Huang bell said. The Dong Huang bell said. It chose to submit. It had no choice but to submit. The Red World Fairy was a decisive person. Naturally, she would keep her word. If he dared to go against the Red World Fairy, he would definitely suffer the wrath of the Red World Fairy. When the time came, only death awaited him. Shwa! A ball of light flew out. It was unknown what was wrapped in that ball of light. That ball of light flew toward the Red World Fairy and was collected by the Red World Fairy. At least you know your place, the Red World Fairy said. She turned around and walked outside. Lin Feng hastily followed him. Kid, you want to leave too? Are you dreaming? Some corpses blocked Lin Feng's path. They could not afford to offend the Red World Fairy, but they did not want to let Lin Feng go. Are your eyes blind? This fairy is an old friend of mine. Lin Feng said fiercely. He had almost said the word person. Fortunately, he stopped in time and changed the last two words to friend. Otherwise, who knew if he would be beaten to death by the Red World Fairy? The Een corpse blocking Lin Feng's Wei had an unsightly expression. He did not dare to continue blocking Lin Feng and quickly retreated. Lin Feng followed the Red World Fairy and left. They were still in East Imperial City. Back then, the East Imperial Bell had returned to East Imperial City after devouring Lin Feng and Huangfu Qingtian. This time, Lin Feng and the Red World Fairy left East Imperial City together. Where do you plan to go, Venerable Immortal? Lin Feng asked. The Red World Fairy looked at Lin Feng and said, Hell. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows and said, Venerable Immortal, what are you looking for in the Netherworld? The Red World Fairy said expressionlessly, You seem to be asking too many questions. She could not help but frown slightly. She had a feeling that the current Lin Feng was different from the Lin Feng she knew in the past. In her impression, Lin Feng did not dare to casually ask questions in front of her. However, this time, Lin Feng asked one question after another. Lin Feng said, "Can I show some concern for Venerable Immortal?" The Red World Fairy was slightly taken aback and said, "No need." Then she tore through the void and left. "Little girl, you will be conquered by me sooner or later. At that time, I will make you sing conquered in front of me every day." Lin Feng could not help but fantasize in his heart. Lin Feng did not continue to stay here. He quickly left the ancient battlefield and went to the outside world. He summoned the three-headed viper. The three-headed viper carried Lin Feng and quickly flew toward Divine Crow Island. Back then, Lin Feng and Nangong Xianer had agreed to meet at Divine Crow Island. 3 days later, waves were rolling on the sea. Huge waves that were tens of thousands of feet high rose into the sky. Amidst the huge waves, there were densely packed oceanic species creatures. These oceanic creatures surrounded Lin Feng and the three-headed viper. Whoosh! A divine stone that emitted a terrifying aura flew over. Chapter 3873. This was a powerful cultivator from the palace of the ocean dragons. Lin Feng had seen this powerful cultivator sealed in the divine stone before. He came from the palace of the ocean dragons. His status seemed to be extraordinary, and his combat ability was unusually strong. So many cultivators from the palace of the ocean dragons had surrounded him. Obviously, it was because of Aoshan. Aoshan was killed by him. It was impossible to hide this from the palace of the ocean dragons. Aoshan might not be important, but the dignity of the palace of the ocean dragons was extremely important. As one of the overlords of the vast sea world, the palace of the ocean dragons had to do something when the 9th prince of the dragon palace was killed. If the palace of the ocean dragons didn't respond, it would be a huge blow to their reputation. "Brat, did you kill Aoshan?" A cold voice came from the divine stone. "That's right. It was me. That guy didn't have eyes. He was asking for death in front of me. So I took care of that guy. The palace of the ocean dragons should thank me. If I didn't kill that trash, Aoshan, with his arrogant personality, I don't know how many enemies he would have made for the palace of the ocean dragons." Lin Feng said. Hearing Lin Feng's words, the corner of the mouth of the being in the divine stone twitched violently. He said coldly, "Brat, you killed my clansmen. How dare you boast so shamelessly? You're courting death. Take out the god-slaying spear formation and kill them." "Yes, Grand Elder," the densely packed sea clan creatures answered. And then they all took out a supreme treasure. It was a very special spear. It was made from a strange ancient tree that grew in the deep sea world. Its penetrating power was very strong, and it could easily pierce through the void. It could unleash an incredible power. The palace of the ocean dragons chopped down all the strange ancient trees and used them to make tens of thousands of spears. Now these cultivators threw the spears in their hands. The densely packed spears contained a power that could destroy the world. The terrifying power made everyone's hair stand on end. The power of those spears was absolutely horrifying. Any single spear was extremely powerful, let alone so many spears thrown together. Its power was unimaginable. Humph! Lin Feng couldn't help but snort coldly and directly used the Space Stop Spirit ability. When this ability was used, the spears with extremely powerful penetrating power seemed to be imprisoned. His speed dropped drastically. Moreover, the power of those spears was also rapidly declining as the speed at which they were unleashed was decreasing. At this time, the three-headed viper spat out a dense amount of lightning and hailstones. Those attacks exploded in midair, and many spears were blown away. At the same time, the huge tail of the three-headed viper swept towards the merfolk creatures. Bang, bang, bang. Countless sea creatures were swept away by the three-headed viper's tail. Poison Wave, the three-headed viper's attacks were relentless. It opened its three ferocious mouths and spat out one ball of poisonous gas after another. Those balls of poisonous gas directly exploded in the midst of the oceanic species. In an instant, poisonous gas filled the air. Those oceanic species were poisoned after inhaling the poisonous gas. Many oceanic species were directly poisoned to death. Courting death, the existence in the Godstone couldn't help but roar angrily and quickly rushed over, endless divine light gushing out. The divine light gushing out from the Godstone turned into a huge blade. That huge blade fell from the sky and slashed towards the three-headed viper. Obviously, the existence in the Godstone didn't care about a young human cultivator like Lin Feng. His attention, it was all on the three-headed viper. No matter what, the three-headed viper, it was also an emperor-level powerhouse. The giant saber instantly tore through the void. Then, it slashed towards the three-headed viper. Swoosh! Lin Feng disappeared without a trace, hiding in the void. The three-headed viper faced the existence in the Godstone head-on, while Lin Feng lay dormant, preparing to launch a sure-kill attack on that existence. The existence in the Godstone sneered, and a power that could distort time and space gushed out from the Godstone. The void within 100 meters of the Godstone violently distorted. The existence in the Godstone wanted to use the distorted void to block Lin Feng. Even if the distorted void couldn't stop Lin Feng, in the eyes of the existence in the Godstone, if Lin Feng appeared inside the distorted void, he would instantly sense this situation. Then, when the time came, yes, against Lin Feng, launch a sure-kill attack. At this time, the three-headed viper used a powerful divine ability to block the attack of that huge blade. A huge energy light shield condensed. That energy light shield floated in front of the three-headed viper. When the huge blade slashed down, it directly hit the energy light shield and was actually blocked by the energy light shield condensed by the three-headed viper. The three-headed viper had occupied the Divine Tao Immortal Palace for so long, and this guy had obtained many divine ability inheritances from the Divine Tao Immortal Palace. Perhaps this was the main reason why the three-headed viper was so powerful. Of course, its own bloodline must have played an extremely important role in its growth process. The huge blade didn't dissipate, and the attack didn't break the energy light shield condensed by the three-headed viper. The existence in the Godstone continued to urge the huge blade to attack the energy light shield condensed by the three-headed viper. Clang, 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 clang. One attack after another landed on the energy light shield condensed by the three-headed viper. 3 attacks in a row. Kacha! Kacha! Finally, the energy light shield condensed by the three-headed viper could no longer hold on. In the end, it was shattered by the huge blade. However, the huge blade, condensed by the existence in the Godstone, also dissipated. He continued to condense new divine abilities to attack the three-headed viper. But at this time, Lin Feng appeared beside him. The distance between them was less than 1 meter. Lin Feng's Tao of Space was incomparably mysterious. The existence in the Godstone was too confident in his methods. Therefore, he didn't think that Lin Feng could silently approach him. When Lin Feng arrived beside him, this existence discovered that Lin Feng was already beside him. Die! Lin Feng held the black dragon sword in his hand. He held the sword with both hands. He slashed out with all his strength. That tyrannical sword fiercely slashed towards the Godstone. Clang! The powerful blow landed directly on the Godstone. Kacha! Kacha! The Godstone shattered. Then, Lin Feng activated the 6-fold dragon elephant arm and punched towards the cracked Godstone. Bang! Rubble flew through the air. Then, Lin Feng's terrifying punch directly landed on the chest of the existence in the Godstone. Chapter 3874. Die. Lin Feng's voice was cold as the battle sword in his hand slashed towards the creature. The life form within the Godstone was an extremely old sea race life form. This sea race life form was covered in dragon scales, but it had a serpent tail. It was a creature that looked like a dragon, but wasn't a dragon. It looked like a dragon, but wasn't a dragon. After injuring that spirit, Lin Feng immediately rushed towards it. He was holding his black dragon sword in his hand and slashed towards that terrifying spirit. Kid, you deserve to die 10,000 times. The terrifying existence roared, its eyes bursting with boundless killing intent. An expert like him, high and mighty, was injured by Lin Feng. Naturally, he was incomparably furious, and he felt extremely aggrieved and even felt a great humiliation because of this. Other than that, his lifespan was already very little. He sealed himself in the divine stone, and his lifespan stopped flowing. He could still live for many years. When he obtained a heaven-defying opportunity and broke through his cultivation again, he could break the divine stone and live like a normal person. But now, the timing wasn't right. He didn't obtain a heaven-defying opportunity and couldn't break through at all, because he couldn't break through. Now, he returned to heaven and earth. It wouldn't be long before his lifespan ran out. He would die soon. At their age, all kinds of elixirs and miraculous medicines were basically no longer able to prolong their lives. So, being born in advance, this existence had no choice but to face the threat of death. Therefore, this existence gnashed his teeth in hatred towards Lin Feng. He couldn't wait to eat Lin Feng's flesh and drink Lin Feng's blood. Facing Lin Feng's attack, this existence's reaction was extremely fast. He opened his big hand, and suddenly 18 black demonic dragons flew out and pounced towards Lin Feng. Feeling the terror of the 18 black demonic dragons, Lin Feng couldn't help but be shocked. He hurriedly retreated and, at the same time, waved the black dragon sword and slashed towards the 18 black demonic dragons. Puff, puff, puff. One by one, the black demonic dragons were killed by Lin Feng. That terrifying existence pounced towards Lin Feng, wanting to kill Lin Feng. However, at this moment, the three-headed viper turned into a black light. Like a peerlessly sharp spear, it instantly pierced through the void. They shot towards this terrifying existence. The terrifying existence had an indifferent look on his face. He directly condensed an illusory immortal mountain and pressed down on the black light formed by the three-headed viper. The three-headed viper, which had transformed into a black light, was immediately suppressed in midair. The three-headed viper transformed back into its original form. Then it began to struggle. The illusory immortal mountain began to crumble. However, it would take some time for it to break through the suppression. Whoosh! With a wave of his hand, Lin Feng summoned a dozen powerful magic treasures. Lin Feng summoned them. Those powerful magic treasures hovered around Lin Feng, each of them exuding the power to distort space-time. That terrifying existence sneered and said, "Brat, he really had a lot of treasures on him, but it was useless. Your cultivation level is too low, no matter how many treasures you have. Only death awaits you." The terrifying existence sneered and said. He waved his hands again and again. Suddenly, a huge whirlpool appeared in front of him. That huge whirlpool enveloped all of the magical treasures within. Lin Feng's magic treasures were actually unable to break free from the huge whirlpool. What a powerful cultivation! Lin Feng could not help but take a deep breath. This guy was already injured, but he was still so powerful. This was beyond Lin Feng's expectations. This guy's cultivation level was obviously very high. Now, he was probably in trouble. Lin Feng could not think of a way to deal with this guy for the time being. "Brat, are you ready to die?" The terrifying existence looked at Lin Feng with a sinister smile. Right now, he only wanted to kill Lin Feng to vent his hatred. This terrifying existence quickly rushed towards Lin Feng. He wanted to kill Lin Feng. At this moment, a thought flashed through Lin Feng's mind. He thought of the Eye of Death. The Eye of Death could deprive others of their lifespan. Although the existence in front of him had a terrifying cultivation level, it was not without weaknesses. His weakness was that his lifespan was extremely short. Once the Eye of Death was activated, it might be able to deprive him of his lifespan in a very short period of time. Thinking of this, Lin Feng's face could not help but reveal a trace of joy. He began to activate the Eye of Death. Whoosh! The light of death shone towards the terrifying existence. The terrifying existence's expression was indifferent. He waved his hand and swept it towards the light of death. However, the light of death was extremely strange. It was not destroyed by this terrifying existence. Instead, the light of death wrapped around the terrifying existence's body. This terrifying existence's already short lifespan was instantly deprived of half of it. "Ah, my lifespan! My lifespan!" The terrifying existence cried out in horror. What he cared about the most now was his limited lifespan. He did not want to die. He wanted to live on, but his lifespan was already very short. He was originally worried about his short lifespan, but now his lifespan was already extremely short, and Lin Feng had taken away another part of it. This almost drove this terrifying existence crazy. He quickly retreated, not daring to get close to Lin Feng. Lin Feng could deprive him of his lifespan. This was too much of a threat to him. Let's see how much lifespan you have left to be deprived by me." Lin Feng chased after him with a sneer. "Kid, the grudge between us is not that deep. How about we both take a step back?" The terrifying existence shouted, "Are you dreaming?" Lin Feng sneered and did not back down. The terrifying existence turned around and fled. Lin Feng collected many treasures. The three-headed viper also broke free from the suppression. Lin Feng said, "Kill all of these people from the Dragon Palace. Leave no one alive." "Yes, great master." After receiving the order, the three-headed viper quickly pounced on the cultivators from the Dragon Palace. Lin Feng, on the other hand, chased after the powerful existence that escaped. Whoosh! The powerful existence dived into the sea and quickly swam downwards. His speed was much faster than when he was in the air. However, Lin Feng's speed was also extremely fast. It was not easy for this guy to shake off Lin Feng. "Kid, do you really want to kill me? If I choose to self-detonate, we will die together," shouted the terrifying cultivator furiously. Surprisingly, he was threatening Lin Feng with self-destruction. "Self-detonation? Do you not value your life at all?" Lin Feng sneered. He did not believe that this person would choose to self-detonate. He sped up and chased after the cultivator. The cultivator also sped up his escape. Chapter 3875. The Great Rift Valley exuded a sinister and terrifying aura. Lin Feng could not help but frown when he sensed the aura coming from the Great Rift Valley. It seemed that this Great Rift Valley was not as simple as it seemed. This terrifying existence had purposely lured him here. As he went deeper and deeper into the Great Rift Valley, Lin Feng saw many skeletons in the Great Rift Valley. These skeletons clearly belonged to cultivators who had died here due to various reasons. It was unknown how many years had passed since those cultivators had died. Therefore, their corpses had long decayed. The terrifying existence was still flying deeper into the Great Rift Valley. The Great Rift Valley was filled with powerful space-time energy. Lin Feng saw huge rifts one after another. Those were space-time rifts. The space-time energy spewed out from the rifts. Large amounts of seawater were swallowed by the space-time rifts. The strangest thing was that the space-time rifts were not fixed. Those space-time rifts were constantly moving. When Lin Feng arrived at the Great Rift Valley's depths, the space-time rifts had sealed the way out. That terrifying existence stopped as well. He laughed sinisterly and said, "Kid, you've really followed me. You've really chased after me. You're courting death, so don't blame me." Lin Feng laughed coldly. He wanted to see what this terrifying existence was up to. "Immortal eating spiders, come out." The terrifying existence roared. At that moment, huge spiders crawled out from the space-time rifts. These spiders were 4 to 5 meters tall. At their abdomens, there was a hideous human head. Hundreds of spiders crawled out. They all stared at Lin Feng as if they were staring at the most delicious food. These terrifying spiders clearly saw Lin Feng as their food. Foreign living beings. Lin Feng was shocked. These spider demons were actually a group of foreign living beings. Lin Feng had encountered foreign living beings before. He was more sensitive to their aura. He could confirm that these spider demons were foreign living beings. This was the first time Lin Feng had seen foreign living beings after coming to the great heavenly sage world. That's right. That's right. This brat's flesh and blood was extremely powerful, tempering the sword. "The prey you brought this time is pretty good. I hope you can bring us more prey like this in the future," a spider spirit said sinisterly. It seemed that the spider demons and the expert from Dragon Palace had known each other for a long time. They had even reached some kind of special agreement between them. "Hee, everyone don't worry. When the time comes, I'll definitely bring you even more delicious food. Now, enjoy this delicious meal to your heart's content," the expert from Dragon Palace called Ao Jian said. "Eat him." A group of spider demons charged towards Lin Feng. Their auras were extremely terrifying. There were even emperor-level spider spirits among them, and there was more than one. Being surrounded by such a large group of spider demons was naturally very dangerous, but Lin Feng was not afraid. Whoosh! Lin Feng waved his hand. Instantly, the 3 pristine 8 trigrams diagram flew out. The 3 pristine 8 trigrams floated in the air. Waves of astonishing fluctuations surged out from the 3 pure 8 trigrams diagram. Then, golden light gushed out. It shone towards the spider demons. Streaks of golden light bombarded the bodies of the spider demons. Puff, puff, puff. Ripping sounds could be heard. The bodies of the spider demons were pierced, and they died on the spot. Although the spider demons were powerful, they were restrained by the 3 pristine 8 trigrams diagram. The most terrifying thing about the 3 pristine 8 trigrams diagram was that it could restrain 6 different types of living beings. Now, the spider demons could not withstand the attacks of the 3 pristine 8 trigrams diagram. "Run! Run quickly!" the spider demons screamed in fear. They quickly fled towards the space-time cracks. Apart from the dozens of spider demon corpses, the rest of the spider demons were trapped in the space-time cracks. Lin Feng, on the other hand, looked at Ao Jian indifferently. The spider demons ignored Ao Jian. Ao Jian's expression turned ugly. He had not expected Lin Feng to have a treasure that could restrain the spider demons. This was troublesome. Ao Jian turned around and fled into the distance, wanting to leave this place as soon as possible. Shua. However, at that moment, Lin Feng activated the Eyes of Death. A ray of death light shot out from the Eyes of Death and swept towards Ao Jian. The ray of death light swept across Ao Jian's body. No, no, no. My lifespan. Aojin could not help but scream. His lifespan was taken away once again. To Aojin, this was a fate worse than death. He fled madly, wanting to leave this place. However, he was unable to escape in the end. The second ray of death light flew over and swept across Aojin's body. Aojin's body. It could not withstand the power of the second ray of death light. All of his lifespan was instantly taken away by the second ray of death light. Why is this happening? Am I going to die just like that? I am not willing to accept this. Aojin smiled miserably. His corpse fell down from the sky. Lin Feng threw a punch and destroyed Aojin's corpse. Lin Feng then took Aojin's original strength and ring. Keek keek. Suddenly, a sinister voice came from the space-time cracks. It was as terrifying as the laughter of a malicious spirit. When Lin Feng heard the laughter, he frowned. He could not help but frown. Kid, come in. We can talk. This is a negotiation that will greatly benefit both of us. A sharp and ear-piercing voice came from the cracks. It was a woman's voice. Who are you? Lin Feng asked. I am the King of Spiders. Are you afraid after hearing my name? If you are, you can leave. I will not stop you from leaving. The existence continued. Trying to provoke me is useless against me. Lin Feng said indifferently. However, I am somewhat interested in you. I would like to see what kind of existence the so-called King of Spiders is. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng flew towards one of the space-time cracks. He entered one of the space-time cracks. There were space-time storms wreaking havoc in the space-time cracks. Lin Feng held the hurricane pearl in his hand. Thus, the space-time storms could not harm Lin Feng. There were also many spider spirits hibernating in the space-time cracks. However, when they saw Lin Feng, they all fled far away. Clearly, they were extremely afraid of Lin Feng's 3 pure 8 trigrams diagram. Chapter 3876. In the endless space-time, an indescribably huge existence was being chained up by numerous chains. A single claw of that terrifying existence was hundreds of thousands of meters long, perhaps even 1,000,000 meters long. It was impossible to know how big its body was. That existence was the King of Spiders, a terrifying creature that had lived for who knew how many millions of years. It was a terrifying being that had come from the foreign realm to this epic universe. She was different from other spider spirits. The King of Spiders had an extremely beautiful face. If one looked at her face alone, one would fall in love at first sight. However, when one looked at the King of Spiders' body with that face, one would not fall in love at first sight. Instead, one would feel fear and horror. Why did you call me here? Lin Feng looked at the King of Spiders and asked, What a handsome young man. Did you know? Actually, I like interacting with you humans the most. I remember meeting one of your ancestors in the past. That ancestor of yours is really powerful. The King of Spiders could not help but sigh. Lin Feng frowned and asked, You know my origin? Of course. Do you think I'm trapped here? Can't I sense your bloodline? The King of Spiders asked. That's not it. Lin Feng shook his head. He then asked, Who is this ancestor you're talking about? I don't know his name. I remember a demon brought him into the undying realms barren Sky Ridge. I met him there. Why do you still have that demon's aura on you? Let me take a closer look. The King of Spiders' eyes turned into a demonic blood-red color, but they quickly returned to normal. The King of Spiders said, So this guy is in one of your treasures. Lin Feng was surprised. He knew who the King of Spiders was talking about. The demon she was talking about was the Demon Lord. In the past, he had an ancestor who had once shattered the undying realms barrier with a single punch. The Demon Lord knew his ancestor, but he was unwilling to talk about his ancestor. Therefore, Lin Feng didn't get much information from the demon lord about the ancestor. You weren't imprisoned by my ancestor, were you? Lin Feng asked in surprise. Of course not. To be honest, I still have to thank your ancestor. It was all thanks to your ancestor that I was able to walk out of the desolate sky ridge. The king of 10,000 spiders said. What do you mean? Lin Feng asked. This matter is very complicated. Your ancestor, you helped me get out of the desolate sky ridge. Therefore, I am indebted to your bloodline. If you don't believe me, you can ask that monster. The king of 10,000 spiders said. Demon Lord, is what she said true? Asked Lin Feng telepathically. It's true. He is indeed your ancestor. To help her escape. Yao Jun said after a moment of silence. Lin Feng was surprised. According to normal reasoning, these foreign creatures were all things that everyone had the right to kill. Why? His own ancestor would help this foreign creature break free? This made Lin Feng feel very strange. He was also very puzzled. The King of Spiders asked, If you have any doubts, feel free to ask me. Why would my ancestor help you leave the desolate sky ridge? Lin Feng asked. He had heard of the desolate sky ridge before. It was one of the most terrifying forbidden areas in the undying realm. Foreign creatures. There are good and evil. Not all of them were foreign creatures. They are all evil. The King of Spiders said. So you're saying that? Are you one of the more righteous, otherworldly creatures? Lin Feng frowned. The King of 10,000 Spiders said, I don't know if I am a righteous foreign creature, but ever since I came to this universe, I have never killed the innocent. Oh, is that so? That's really surprising. Then why did you come to this universe? Lin Feng asked. I am... The King of Spiders' eyes revealed a look of reminiscence. Her originally cold and gloomy eyes had actually become gentle at this very moment. It was truly somewhat inconceivable. Back then, I was just a small spider. A very, very small spider. I wasn't very strong, nor did I have any talent for cultivation. Once in a while, I had the chance to eat a spirit herb and awaken my spiritual sense. My body began to change, and I became less and less like my own kind. I was ostracized and hunted down by my own kind. I almost died, but that day I saw him. I climbed on top of him and hid. The spiders chasing me didn't dare to come forward, and I finally escaped. But how can we hide all this from him? He grabbed my body and placed me in his palm. I was really scared back then. I was worried that he would crush me to death. But he didn't do that. I will never forget his voice when he spoke to me for the first time. His voice was so gentle and warm. He asked me why I was being chased by a group of spiders. I couldn't speak. I wanted to talk to him, but I didn't know how to. He said that everything has a spirit. Even a spider has its own life. All lives are equal. He took me with him and let me recuperate at his place. He was looking for an extremely precious spirit medicine in the mountain forest. It seems that his mother was seriously ill and needed that spirit medicine. However, he searched many places and still couldn't find that spirit medicine. My injuries were healed. He let me go back to the forest. He was about to leave, and he needed to go somewhere else to find that herb. I wanted to leave with him, but I couldn't speak. I could only watch him leave. From then on, I cultivated as if my life depended on it. I cultivated as if my life depended on it. I risked my life to devour the heavenly treasures guarded by those powerful creatures. I even risked my life to hunt even more powerful beasts. I needed their flesh and blood to help me advance. I kept working hard. I wanted to transform into a human as soon as possible, so that I could find him as soon as possible. I don't know how many years passed, but I finally transformed into a human. I left the ancient forest and went to find him. I searched for many years, but I couldn't find him. But I found his family. I found out from his clansmen that his mother had become a living dead, and he was still looking for that precious spirit herb. Chapter 3877. What happened after that? Lin Feng asked. The king of spiders said, I drifted in the space between the universes. The outside world was too mysterious for me, full of unknowns. Therefore, I didn't know where I drifted to until one day I found myself in another universe. This universe, it was full of vitality, full of hope. It is the universe we are in now. I searched for him for a long time, but I couldn't find him. At this time, some foreign creatures came to this universe one after another. Some of them were very greedy. They wanted to continuously plunder the resources of this universe. They even wanted to enslave this universe. Therefore, conflicts arose, and a great war broke out. The war was too fierce. Apart from the otherworldly creatures, there seemed to be other races participating as well. The otherworldly creatures invited me to participate in the war, but I refused. I didn't want to obtain so many resources, nor did I want to enslave others. I just wanted to find him. However, by chance, I discovered a secret. Behind the scenes of this war, there seems to be a pair of black hands pushing all of this forward. Lin Feng was shocked when he heard this. The king of spiders had mentioned the dark hands behind the scenes. According to Lin Feng's knowledge, there was indeed a pair of dark hands behind the scenes pushing everything forward. However, no one knew the origins of the dark hands behind the scenes. I seemed to have discovered a great secret, but I didn't want to delve too deeply into it, because if I knew that secret, I might not have a good ending. However, I underestimated the power of the dark hands behind the scenes. They seemed to have discovered me. Not long after, terrifying existences came to hunt me down. Those existences lingered in the darkness. I didn't know what they were. I fled all the way until I reached the barren sky ridge. Those terrifying existences didn't chase me into the barren sky ridge. At this point, the Spider King paused. Lin Feng frowned and pondered. The barren sky ridge was equivalent to the undying world's forbidden zone. The forbidden zones of every world were extremely terrifying. Furthermore, there were countless secrets hidden within. Clearly, the barren sky ridge was the same. Why didn't those terrifying existences dare to enter the barren sky ridge? This made Lin Feng very confused. You seem to be trapped in the desolate sky ridge. Lin Feng asked. It's like this. I'm trapped in the wasteland ridge. It was the terrifying existence in the desolate heaven ridge that suppressed me. The king of 10,000 spiders said. Lin Feng said in shock, Is there such a powerful creature in the barren sky ridge? Why didn't he kill you? The wasteland ridge is much more terrifying than I imagined. As for why he didn't kill me, I don't know either. The Spider King said, I don't know how many years have passed. Your ancestor has entered the barren sky ridge. He wants to challenge the strongest existence in the undying world and fight against the ruler of the barren sky ridge. The battle between the two of them was too terrifying. Many seals were shattered, and that was when I escaped. Then who imprisoned you here? Lin Feng asked doubtfully. It's a group of otherworldly beings. They want to kill me. However, my body is almost undying. They tried many times, but to no avail. In the end, they could only imprison me here. The Spider King said. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows. He didn't know if the Spider King's words could be trusted. He had a feeling that the Spider King was hiding something. The Spider King wasn't telling the complete truth. Of course, that was just Lin Feng's guess. As for whether it was as he guessed, no one knew. What kind of cooperation do you want from me? Lin Feng asked. I want you to help me look for him. The Spider King said. Lin Feng knew who the king of the 10,000 spiders was talking about. The him she was referring to was the man she had been looking for all this time. Lin Feng couldn't help but roll his eyes. The world is so big. Where am I supposed to find him? Moreover, it's hard to say whether he's even in this universe. So, I really can't help you with your request. The Spider King said. I found some clues in the past. He should be in this universe, so I hope that you can help me find him. Do you think it's possible to find him with just your description? Lin Feng asked. The Spider King said, I have a keepsake here. As soon as she finished speaking, a ball of divine light flew out. The ball of divine light actually wrapped around a strand of hair. The keepsake the Spider King was talking about was actually a strand of hair. This is his hair. I've been carrying it with me for so many years. You can use it to find him. The Spider King said. Lin Feng said indifferently, What benefits do I have? There are naturally benefits. Back then, I saw a stone scripture. That stone scripture seems to have the same origin as a certain power in your body. The Spider King said. What? A stone scripture? Lin Feng's eyes couldn't help but widen. He felt his heartbeat quicken. He had a feeling that the stone scripture the Spider King was talking about was very likely the holy scripture passed down by the Heavenly Master's bloodline. It was the most precious treasure of the Heavenly Master's bloodline. At the same time, many unimaginable secret techniques were recorded in it. The core inheritance was also recorded in the stone scripture. All these years, Lin Feng had always wanted to find the stone scripture, but he hadn't been able to find any clues. Now, Lin Feng was very excited that he had obtained a clue about the stone scripture from the Spider King. That power of the same origin. Is it this power? Lin Feng flicked his finger, and the Stone Emperor's scripture condensed a special godly power. That's right, the Spider King said. Lin Feng took a deep breath. Sure enough, it was just as he had guessed. It really was the holy scripture of the Heavenly Master's bloodline. Where is the stone scripture? Lin Feng asked. So, you're planning to cooperate with me? The Spider King asked. Of course. Lin Feng nodded. The stone scripture is in a cave in the depths of the 7th mountain range. The Spider King said, Good. I'll do my best to help you find the person you're looking for. If there's any news, I'll send someone to inform you. Lin Feng said. Then he flew outside. He quickly left the area. Great Empress, why do you want this person to help you find the whereabouts of that person? An Emperor-level spider asked. Chapter 3878. Hum, 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 3 dragon-like cries were heard. In the distance, the 3-headed viper's huge body flew over quickly. Lin Feng sat cross-legged on the middle head of the 3-headed viper. Let's go to the Dragon Palace. Let's see what treasures they have. Lin Feng ordered the 3-headed viper. The Palace of the Ocean Dragons was naturally very powerful. It was a giant in the sea world. But now, Ao Jian, the secret powerhouse of the Palace of the Ocean Dragons, had died. The Palace of the Ocean Dragons was much weaker now. Lin Feng guessed, even if the Palace of the Ocean Dragons still had a secret powerhouse, at most, there was probably only one of them. After all, it was just an overlord in the sea area. How could it have so many top-level powerhouses? Lin Feng planned to rob the Palace of the Ocean Dragons. He wondered if there were any good things in the Palace of the Ocean Dragons. Lin Feng guessed that there should be a lot of precious things in the huge Palace of the Ocean Dragons. This was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. So Lin Feng felt at ease when he robbed the Palace of the Ocean Dragons. 3 days later, The three-headed viper arrived at the sea area where the palace of the ocean dragons was. Then it carried Lin Feng directly. It flew quickly towards the underwater world. Soon, they arrived at the underwater world. They saw many magnificent palaces from afar. And those palaces, it was the palace of the ocean dragons. In the sea area, many sea creatures were patrolling with weapons in their hands. Those sea creatures were very powerful. They noticed the two uninvited guests, Lin Feng and the three-headed viper. They all gathered around. The Dragon Palace is an important place. Leave now, or we'll execute you on the spot. Some sea creatures shouted coldly, trying to scare off Lin Feng and the three-headed viper. The three-headed viper's thick tail swept out, and a large number of oceanic species creatures behind it were sent flying. At the same time, the three-headed viper released the power of thunder and lightning. Water was conductive, so it released the power of thunder and lightning in the sea. The power of the lightning would be greatly increased. The sea creatures in front of them were turned into charcoal by the three-headed viper's lightning. Even though these sea creatures were extremely powerful, they were still extremely powerful. However, he was still too weak in front of the three-headed viper. The three-headed viper carried Lin Feng to the top of the Dragon Palace. "Who are you? How dare you barge into our Dragon Palace?" The Dragon King was alarmed. He flew out personally and shouted in a deep voice. Apart from the Dragon King, many creatures showed up in the palace of the ocean dragons. They glared at Lin Feng, who was sitting on the head of the three-headed viper. Naturally, they could tell that the three-headed viper was Lin Feng's mount. An emperor lord level powerful creature was only the mount of a young human cultivator. This was indeed very inconceivable, but the world was so big that anything could happen. Ao Jian from the palace of the ocean dragons. Ao Shun, it's all because you offended me. I've already killed him. If you don't want the palace of the ocean dragons to be destroyed, then open your treasure vault obediently. I'm going to rob your treasure vault clean. Lin Feng said loudly. What? Both the Grand Elder and Ao Shun were killed? The cultivators of the palace of the ocean dragons were shocked. They wouldn't be so surprised if Ao Shun was the only one killed. After all, Ao Shun was a third-generation cultivator. However, even the Emperor Lord level Ao Jian was killed. They couldn't accept that. You're talking nonsense. Could it be that you think you can kill old ancestor Ao Jian with just you and this low-level Emperor Lord mount? You're daydreaming. The Dragon King said coldly. What? You still don't believe me? I'll show it to you, and you'll believe what I'm saying. Lin Feng sneered and waved his hand. Instantly, many images appeared in the air. These were the images of Lin Feng taking Ao Jian's lifespan with the Eye of Death and killing him at the space-time crack. When they saw those images, everyone's faces couldn't help but reveal an aghast expression. Ao Jian, he was really dead. There's a limit to my patience. Open the treasure vault door quickly, or else I'll destroy the Dragon Palace now. Lin Feng said fiercely, Who's afraid of you? If we really fight, the Dragon Palace has thousands of troops. We might be able to kill the two of you. A higher-up of the Dragon Palace said fiercely, As the saying goes, ants can kill an elephant when there are enough of them. It seemed like this person belonged to the pro-war faction. Is that so? Then let's see how many people from the Dragon Palace will die under my battle sword. Lin Feng said coldly. With a flash, a battle sword appeared in Lin Feng's hand. It was the Black Dragon Sword. The Black Dragon Sword was surrounded by black smoke. A black dragon was formed and wrapped around the Black Dragon Sword. It was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. It was terrifying. Sir, please calm down. We can open the treasure vault, let you take all the treasures in the vault. However, I hope that when the time comes, our feud, we can write it off." Dragon King said in a deep voice, "Ha ha ha ha, a wise man submits to circumstances. I always keep my words. I'll take all the treasures from the Dragon Palace. Naturally, I won't target the Dragon Palace." Lin Feng said with a laugh. On the side of the Dragon Palace, some experts looked gloomy. They wanted to say something, but were stopped by Dragon King. The Dragon King obviously had more considerations than these people. "Sir, please come with me," Dragon King said. He led the way. Soon, they came to the treasure vault of the Dragon Palace. There was a space inside the treasure vault of the Dragon Palace. There were all kinds of treasures piled up inside. Lin Feng was not in the mood to check those treasures. He would take them first. A large number of treasures were moved into time and space by Lin Feng. All kinds of treasures were piled up like a mountain. Finally, Lin Feng ransacked the treasure vault of the Dragon Palace completely. Then he rode the three-headed viper and soared into the sky, leaving the Dragon Palace. After Lin Feng left, one of the higher-ups of the Dragon Palace said with a long face, "Dragon King beat him up. Why did he open the treasure vault for that guy? If we activate the formation, trap that guy, we might not be able to kill him. The blood-boiling ancestor is at the hidden latch of life and death. He can't be disturbed now. If he is disturbed, the loss will outweigh the gain. That little bastard. He killed the blood-boiling ancestor and he has an irreconcilable feud with the Dragon Palace of the Azure Sea. We won't let him go so easily. When the blood-boiling ancestor comes out of seclusion, that's when he will die without a burial place." Dragon King said eerily, "When the time comes, we must grind that little bastard into ashes. Otherwise, it will be hard to vent the hatred in our hearts." Chapter 3879. The three-headed viper flew above the sea, heading straight for the Divine Crow Island. At this moment, Lin Feng's divine will invaded time and space. He was looking at the treasures he got from the Dragon Palace. There were all kinds of immortal iron, divine stones, elixirs, heavenly treasures, and other treasures. What made Lin Feng happy was that he got a lot of insect materials from the Dragon Palace's treasury. There were a total of 45 insect materials to cultivate the primordial ancestral worms. There were a total of 18 insect materials to cultivate the Emperor Archaic. There were a total of 42 insect materials to cultivate the primordial demon refining worms. There were a total of 23 insect materials to cultivate the celestial devouring worms. These insect materials were all very precious. Usually, they were very hard to find. It was really not easy to find these insect materials. In addition to these precious insect materials, Lin Feng also found a bottle of demonic liquid of heaven and earth. It was rumored this was a treasure born from heaven and earth. It was of no use to human cultivators, but to demon cultivators, it was the most precious treasure. Bibi, Xiaowang, Dragon Rabbit, and the other two little fellows were excited. Their eyes were shining as they looked at the demonic liquid of heaven and earth. The three little fellows were all very extraordinary. They had already gained intelligence and could sense the great effect the demonic liquid of heaven and earth had on their bodies. They knew if they could refine the demonic liquid of heaven and earth, it would be very important to their cultivation. So now, the three little fellows were very eager to swallow the demonic liquid of heaven and earth. Lin Feng treated them equally. He divided the demonic liquid of heaven and earth into 3 parts. He gave them to the three little fellows. The three little fellows hurriedly swallowed the demonic liquid of heaven and earth. After swallowing the demonic liquid of heaven and earth, the three little fellows entered a state of deep sleep. They needed to sleep to absorb the energy of the demonic liquid of heaven and earth. By the time they woke up, their abilities would have been greatly improved. Lin Feng was looking forward to it. Lin Feng also found a bronze book. This book was called the Demonic Dragon Tome. It recorded many divine powers passed down from the Dragon Palace. However, most of them were draconic divine abilities. The dragon language divine ability was the most powerful when cultivated by the dragon race. Next were some races that were somewhat related to the dragon race. For example, the flood dragons, snakes, and pythons. Although the dragon language divine ability was not as powerful as the dragon race's divine ability, it could still release an extremely terrifying power. Lin Feng gave the magic dragon scripture to the three-headed viper and told him to comprehend these draconic spiritual techniques. The three-headed viper was known for having 3 heads. Therefore, he could do 3 things at once. His methods were also extremely terrifying. If he succeeded in cultivating these draconic divine abilities, he would be able to cultivate them. It could greatly increase its battle prowess. What's that? Lin Feng suddenly discovered a piece of broken wood. It was a piece of charred wood. It seemed to have been struck by lightning. However, that piece of wood still contained vitality, which made Lin Feng very surprised. Generally speaking, it was very difficult for lightning-struck wood to have any vitality left. However, clearly this piece of thunderstruck wood was not ordinary. Lin Feng studied it carefully, but he was still unable to figure out what kind of tree this piece of thunderstruck wood was left behind. Lin Feng withdrew his mind and planned to study it in the future. After exploring these treasures, Lin Feng was still very satisfied. After exploring those treasures, Lin Feng planted the grand firmament purple thunder bamboo in time and space, hoping that the grand firmament purple thunder bamboo could grow faster. When the time came, Lin Feng planned to use the grand firmament purple thunder bamboo to create a treasure. In fact, Lin Feng planned to use the grand firmament purple thunder bamboo to create a second natal magic treasure. Of course, this was only Lin Feng's initial idea. Creating a natal magic treasure was no small matter. Lin Feng needed to observe the grand firmament purple thunder bamboo first before making a decision. Half a month later, Lin Feng finally arrived at the Divine Crow Island. The Divine Crow Island was a cultivator settlement established by Divine Crow Taoist, one of the top 10 rogue cultivator experts overseas. There were many people coming and going here, and it was very lively. The three-headed viper was sent back into time and space by Lin Feng, and then Lin Feng landed on the Divine Crow Island. After landing on the Divine Crow Island, Lin Feng inquired about the whereabouts of Nangong, Xian, and Mulyoshi in a few of the more high-end inns. Nangong, Xian, and Mulyoshi, a pair of great beauties, were the focus of attention wherever they went, so it was quite easy to inquire about their news. After inquiring about the two, Lin Feng asked someone to report. Not long after, the 2 women arrived, and after seeing Lin Feng, they were very excited. These days, the 2 women had not seen Lin Feng, and they did not eat or drink. Now that they saw Lin Feng, their mood became happy. 2 fairies, long time no see, you still look as good as before. Lin Feng said with a smile. The 2 women blushed slightly and rolled their eyes at Lin Feng. Nangong Xian, then said, "Please follow us, young master." Lin Feng nodded and followed behind Nangong Xian, and Mu Yoshi to their residence. "Who is that brat?" After seeing him, Nangong Xian, and Mu Yoshi's faces glowed. "Don't tell me that the 2 fairies admire that brat. Damn, the 2 fairies are the most beautiful women in our vast ocean world, and they have never looked at a male cultivator before. Looking at the two fairies' expressions and expressions, it seems like they have really fallen in love with that brat. I'm so jealous. What did that brat do to make the two fairies fall in love with him? Thinking that the two fairies might be taken soon, my heart is bleeding. Many cultivators began to talk about it. All of them wished that they could replace Lin Feng. Lin Feng naturally didn't know what the cultivators were talking about. He followed Nangong Xian, and Mu Liushi to their residence and said, "Fairy Nangong, what do you need my help with? Can you tell me now?" It's like this. In the past, my family suffered a calamity. Many of my relatives died, tragically. Among my closest relatives, only my mother survived. However, because my mother was poisoned by a strange kind of poison, she fell into a coma. Fortunately, I found the prescription, but there are two spiritual herbs that I haven't been able to find. The first spiritual herb is called the Netherworld King Grass, and the second spiritual herb is called the Celestial Dragon Fruit. After asking around, I found out that there will be an auction on Divine Crow Island in half a month. At that time, someone will take out the Celestial Dragon Fruit for auction. As for the Netherworld King Grass, it is said that it can be found on the Netherworld Island in the depths of the Netherworld Sea region. That place is extremely dangerous, and with my cultivation, only death awaits me if I go there. Therefore, I want to ask young master to help me enter the Netherworld Island and find the Netherworld King Grass. Nangong Xian said, "Of course, but I want to read the immortal scripture first." Lin Feng said, Chapter 3880, because there was still half a month before the auction would be held. Therefore, Lin Feng planned to cultivate properly during this period of time. Lin Feng entered the time and space to cultivate. After breaking through to the Imperial Emperor realm, Lin Feng could already enter the 8th floor of the Chonglu Demon Palace. But he still hadn't entered. Lin Feng obtained the Divine Dao Immortal Palace. The inner hall of the Divine Dao Immortal Palace wasn't opened by the three-headed viper, so he didn't know what was inside. Other than that, Lin Feng still had the powerful divine ability of the 72 gods that he hadn't cultivated yet. However, Lin Feng planned to cultivate the divine ability of the 72 gods first. After he succeeded in cultivating this divine ability, he would consider entering the 8th floor of the Chonglu Demon Palace and exploring the Divine Dao Immortal Palace. It wasn't easy to cultivate the divine ability of the 72 gods, but Lin Feng's comprehension was strong. In addition, Lin Feng's comprehension of various Daos was quite profound. Therefore, for Lin Feng, it was much easier for him to learn the 72 godly skills than for other people. 2.5 months passed in the time and space. Lin Feng finally succeeded in cultivating the divine ability of the 72 gods. After he came out of seclusion, he found out that there were still 2 days before the auction. He could rest for a while before going to the auction. Lin Feng wasn't too interested in this auction. This was because there were very few things that could attract Lin Feng's attention. In such an auction, the chances of a top-notch treasure appearing weren't particularly high. At most, it was easier for some rare items to appear, such as the immortal dragon fruit that Nangong Xian wanted to buy. It was a rare, heavenly treasure. Before this, Lin Feng had never even heard of such a heavenly treasure. At night, Mu Liushi and Nangong Xian pulled Lin Feng to the Yuntai River to play. The Yuntai River was located in the interior of the island, and there were flower boats everywhere. This was a paradise for male cultivators. Therefore, many male cultivators liked to come here. However, this was also a place for men and women to date. On both sides of the river, the scenery was beautiful. Many people liked to rent a boat and travel on it. And today, it was the 15th of January. It was a day to admire the lanterns. Lin Feng seemed to have forgotten about these festivals because it had been too many years. They were all alone, and it was very difficult for them to stay in one place like ordinary people. When Lin Feng, Mu Liushi, and Nangong Xianer arrived at the Yuntai River, they saw that both sides of the river were bustling with activity. In the Yuntai River, flower boats were intertwined. It was a magnificent sight. Many of the boats had gorgeously dressed women standing on them. They stroked their hair coquettishly, attracting passers-by. These flower boats are simply an eyesore. Nangong Xian said. Mu Liushi smiled and said, if it weren't for these boats, the Yuntai River wouldn't be so lively. The three of them rented a boat and boarded it. The boatman rowed the boat. The boat began to float on the Yuntai River. The three of them enjoyed the scenery along the river as they drank. This was a rare, leisurely time. For Lin Feng, it was even a little extravagant, because Lin Feng spent most of his time in cultivation. He rarely had time to be so leisurely. The boat drifted far away. Suddenly, the sound of a zither came from afar. The sound of the zither was elegant, like a spring breeze brushing past one's body. On an ancient boat in the distance, a woman sat at the bow. Two beautiful maids stood behind her to serve her. The woman was dressed in snow-white clothes. She was as otherworldly as a fairy from the ninth heaven, attracting many people's attention. But no one dared to disturb the female cultivator playing the zither, or they didn't want to ruin such a wonderful atmosphere. When the song ended, many boats rowed towards the woman's boat. They probably wanted to strike up a conversation with the woman. The boat that Lin Feng and the other two took returned. They had already planned to go back and rest. The day of the auction arrived. People came and went, and it was very lively. Lin Feng and the other two came to the auction house, asked for a box, and then waited quietly. Many people came one after another. There were even many powerful figures who came. Every time a big shot came, it would cause a lot of exclamations and discussions. At this time, a woman in white arrived. The auction house was immediately in an uproar because the identity of the woman in white was extremely extraordinary. It was rumored the woman in white came from the undying realm. This was also the reason why there was such a huge commotion. It wasn't that Lin Feng hadn't seen cultivators from the undying realm before. For example, that Tian Muya was a cultivator from the undying realm. It was just that he didn't know which force this woman in white was from in the undying realm. Some of the young geniuses from the big families in the undying realm would often choose to leave the undying realm and travel through space, and then use this to train themselves. There were more and more people like this, because after the appearance of the 5 decay of the celestial being, the originally declining world of cultivators began to flourish. Therefore, many heaven-defying opportunities appeared in many places. This was also the reason why those cultivators from the undying realm liked to travel. Who knows, they might be able to obtain a great opportunity somewhere. 2 hours later, the auction began. The one presiding over the auction was an old man called Tang Tianyang. This person was the vice president of the auction house. One after another, precious auction items were taken out for auction. Therefore, the competition was rather intense. Halfway through the auction, another auction item was brought up. It was a piece of brocade, and it looked very old and worn. One could vaguely see that there were some blurry words on the brocade, and the brocade itself still had a weak divine power. But this item didn't seem to be some amazing treasure. Tang Tianyang said, "Everyone, the origin of this brocade is extremely extraordinary. Everyone should know that the human race also has a glorious history. In the history of the human race, there were 9 human emperors. Every human emperor was a stunning figure throughout history. And among the 9 human emperors, there was even an empress. And this empress was the 9th human emperor of the human race. The item that we are going to auction today is an imperial edict written by the 9th human emperor of the human race. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. When Tang Tianyang's voice fell, the surroundings immediately burst into an uproar. An imperial edict written by the 9th human emperor of the human race was too shocking. Of course, perhaps there was nothing special about this imperial edict itself, but the information behind this imperial edict was too shocking. Perhaps this imperial edict had something to do with the inheritance of the 9th human emperor of the human race. After the 9th human emperor of the human race fell, her inheritance had never appeared. Chapter 3881. The human emperor's edict had attracted a lot of people's interest. Therefore, it was foreseeable that many people would fight for it. And Lin Feng was determined to get it. The human emperor's edict, whether or not it was related to the orthodoxy of the 9th human emperor. Lin Feng was going to buy it because it was the legacy of the human emperor. It belonged to the human clan. It should be in the hands of the human clan. It could not fall into the hands of the other clans. Lin Feng would not tolerate it if it fell into the hands of the other clans. What's the starting price of this? Someone asked impatiently. They wanted to know the starting price of the human emperor's edict. The starting price is 10,000 immortal stones. Every bid, at least 100 immortal stones. Tang Tianyang said, immortal stones were precious and rare. Therefore, it was not easy for cultivators to get a large amount of immortal stones. Even though Lin Feng had obtained all kinds of opportunities and the storage rings of many experts he had killed, he had only collected 4 to 5 million immortal stones at most. But now, Lin Feng had broken through continuously in a short period of time. Most of the immortal stones had been used up. However, Lin Feng had just robbed the Dragon Palace of the Azure Sea, so he had a lot of immortal stones now. He had about 30 to 40 million immortal stones from the Dragon Palace of the Azure Sea. This was the accumulation of the Dragon Palace of the Azure Sea over many years. It was unrealistic to ask a cultivator to take out so many immortal stones. 30,000 immortal stones. I'll pay 30,000 immortal stones. Immediately, a cultivator shouted his bid. He wanted to buy the human emperor's edict with 30,000 immortal stones. You want to buy the human emperor's edict with 30,000 immortal stones? You must be daydreaming. I'll pay 50,000 immortal stones. Someone continued to bid. Then, more and more cultivators joined the competition. 60,000 immortal stones. 70,000 immortal stones. 88,000 immortal stones. 100,000 immortal stones. The price kept rising. The human emperor's edict made many people extremely excited. Therefore, many cultivators were willing to pay a high price. They also wanted to get the human emperor's edict. If it had nothing to do with the orthodoxy of Renhuang, he could go to another place and send it to the auction house there for auction. In that case, even if he were to make a loss, it wouldn't be by much. Of course, it was also possible that they didn't make a loss. Instead, he would make a huge profit. If it was related to the orthodoxy of the human sovereign, it would be worth it no matter how many immortal stones he had to spend. The orthodoxy of Renhuang was a priceless treasure. In next to no time, the price soared to 500,000 immortal stones. And, obviously, even though the price had reached 500,000 immortal stones, it was still not enough to extinguish everyone's burning desire. 500,000 immortal stones. 580,000 immortal stones. 600,000 immortal stones. 630,000 immortal stones. 650,000 immortal stones. The price continued to soar. As the price continued to rise, many cultivators began to withdraw from the competition. However, there were still many people participating in the competition. In a short period of time, those cultivators would not easily withdraw from this battle. 700,000 immortal stones, 730,000 immortal stones, 760,000 immortal stones, 800,000 immortal stones, 850,000 immortal stones, 880,000 immortal stones, 900,000 immortal stones, 950,000 immortal stones, 1 million immortal stones. When the price reached 1 million immortal stones, many cultivators who were still competing couldn't help but frown slightly. Those cultivators, in the end, they also chose to withdraw from the competition because the price of 1 million immortal stones was simply too high. Moreover, the final price would obviously be even higher. This price had already exceeded the budget of many cultivators and forces. If they continued to increase the price, it would definitely affect the original target of the auction. The remaining cultivators continued to participate in the competition. 1,050,000, 1,100,000, 1,500,000, 2 million immortal stones. The price continued to soar. When the price rose to 3 million immortal stones, after that, no one else made a new bid. After all, 3 million was indeed too high a price. 3 million immortal stones was enough for a top sect to operate for a long time. 3,500,000. At this moment, a voice rang out. It was the voice of a woman. It was none other than the white-robed female cultivator who had walked out of the undying realm. This white-robed female cultivator was indeed a cultivator who had walked out of the undying realm. She was really rich and overbearing. 4 million. At this moment, another voice rang out. The second cultivator made a bid. This was a young cultivator with a head full of blood-red hair. No one knew where he came from. He was also rich and overbearing. The white-robed woman couldn't help but frown slightly. She made a bid. 5 million. The white-robed woman raised the price by 1 million immortal stones. Obviously, she wanted to scare the other party away. 6 million. The blood-red-haired man was unmoved and continued to make a new bid. The white-robed woman frowned slightly. This price had already exceeded what she could afford. In the end, she didn't choose to continue bidding. Everyone, is there anyone who wants to bid higher than 6 million? Tang Tianyang looked around. 6 million was definitely a sky-high price. Tang Tianyang had hosted the auction for more than 1 million years. This was the first time such a high price had been offered. 6 million going once. 6 million going twice. 6 million going thrice. Just as Tang Tianyang was about to shout, "Sold," suddenly, a lazy voice rang out from one of the private rooms. 10 million immortal stones. I want this item. The cultivator who made the bid was none other than Lin Feng. When the cultivators in the auction house heard the words 10 million immortal stones, they couldn't help but gasp. Clearly, the person who made the bid was determined to get the human emperor's imperial decree. That was why he made such a shocking bid. The blood-red-haired cultivator originally thought that the human emperor's imperial decree was already in his bag. Therefore, he couldn't help but smile. However, when he heard the bid of 10 million immortal stones, his expression darkened. The fellow cultivator in this private room has raised the price to 10 million immortal stones. Is there anyone who wants to bid higher? Tang Tianyang couldn't help but sound a little excited. 10 million immortal stones could be said to be a huge milestone in the final price of an auction item. If the item could cross the threshold of 10 million immortal stones, it would definitely be an epic auction that would go down in history. Therefore, Even the knowledgeable Tang Tianyang couldn't help but become extremely excited. 10 million going once, 10 million going twice, 10 million going thrice. Sold. After the hammer fell, the human emperor's imperial decree was sold for 10 million immortal stones. Chapter 3882. Not long after, the auction house's grand elder personally brought the human emperor's imperial decree to Lin Feng's private room. When the auction house's grand elder saw that the cultivator who bought the human emperor's imperial decree was so young, he was obviously shocked. However, he was not an ordinary person. Although he was shocked, he did not show it on his face. "Young master, this is the human emperor's imperial decree. Please take a look at it. If there are no problems, we can proceed with the transaction now," the grand elder said. Lin Feng nodded and carefully looked at the human emperor's imperial decree. There were some ancient words on the human emperor's imperial decree, but Lin Feng did not know what they meant. It was an ancient human language that had been lost for a long time. There are no problems with the human emperor's imperial decree. Here are immortal stones. Lin Feng waved his hand, and a long river made of immortal stones flew out. There were 10 million immortal stones in the river. The auction house's grand elder kept all of the immortal stones. "I won't disturb you anymore, young master." The grand elder cupped his fists and took his leave. The auction continued on. One by one, the auction items were brought out for auction. Lin Feng did not participate in the auction. Lin Feng did not take a closer look at the human emperor's imperial decree because this was not a good place to do so. If there were any anomalies, he would be exposed. About 40 to 50 auction items were brought out for auction. At this moment, a maidservant walked over with a tray. On the tray was a white jade box. "Everyone, next up is a healing immortal herb. This healing immortal herb is different from ordinary immortal herbs. It's very rare. Not only can it be used as the main ingredient to refine healing pills, but it can also be used to refine many precious immortal pills." As his voice fell, Tang Tianyang opened the white jade box, and an immortal medicine appeared in front of everyone's eyes. It was a white immortal fruit that looked like a dragon. Immortal dragon fruit. Nangong Xian-er's eyes lit up when she saw the immortal fruit. "Is this the immortal dragon fruit?" a cultivator exclaimed in shock. Clearly, there were people in the crowd who knew what was good for them. "That's right, it's the immortal dragon fruit. Not even one immortal dragon fruit would appear in tens of thousands of years. This immortal dragon fruit, the starting price was 3,000 immortal stones. Let the bidding begin." Tang Tianyang said, 5,000, 10,000. Following that, many cultivators participated in the competition. The price of the immortal dragon fruit also soared, finally reaching a price of 300,000. Nangong Xian-er, who had yet to make a move, placed a bid of 400,000 immortal stones. She was determined to get the immortal dragon fruit, because this was one of the elixirs that saved her mother's life. Immortal medicines were precious. However, the price of 100,000 immortal stones was already very high, even if the immortal dragon fruit was an extremely rare immortal medicine. The reasonable price was between 200,000 and 300,000. Therefore, Nangong Xian-er's bid had already exceeded the value of the immortal dragon fruit by more than 100,000 immortal stones. Naturally, no one joined in and continued to compete with Nangong Xian-er for the celestial dragon fruit. In the end, the immortal dragon fruit was won by Nangong Xian-er. The auction continued, but Lin Feng and the other two no longer had any plans to participate. Lin Feng had obtained the human emperor's imperial decree from the auction, which could be said to be a pleasant surprise. Now, Lin Feng planned to go back and properly study the imperial decree. After Nangong Xian, paid the immortal stones. The auction house gave the immortal dragon fruit to her. Both sides completed the transaction. Then, the three of them left the auction house. After returning to his residence, Lin Feng returned to his room and impatiently took out the human emperor's imperial decree. The silk cloth used to write the imperial decree wasn't a precious material. If it wasn't for the human emperor's power, the silk cloth would have been completely destroyed. Demon Lord, do you recognize these ancient words? Lin Feng asked. This time, the Demon Lord actually became silent. He didn't answer Lin Feng. Inside the demon orb, the Demon Lord stood up from the lonely grave. His eyes flickered, and there was a slight uncertainty. No one knew what he was thinking. Demon Lord, what do these ancient words mean? Lin Feng continued asking. The Demon Lord said, by the will of the heavens, the human emperor decrees. The heavenly dragon legion is to come to the imperial city as soon as possible. Lin Feng wasn't surprised that the Demon Lord could understand these ancient human words. Over the years, Lin Feng had discovered that the Demon Lord seemed to have studied all kinds of ancient words. When he heard the Demon Lord's words, Lin Feng couldn't help but take a deep breath. These words seemed to contain a lot of information. Could it be that the 9th human emperor is in danger? That's why he issued the imperial decree. He ordered the Heavenly Dragon Legion to return to the imperial city as soon as possible. I wonder what kind of power the Heavenly Dragon Legion is. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown. The 9th human emperor was in existence from the era of titled gods. It was too distant. The matters of that era and the many powers of that era were shrouded in mystery to the people of the future. The Demon Lord said, the Heavenly Dragon Legion, it should be a powerful knight legion, right? Lin Feng asked, Demon Lord, do you know where the imperial city was built by the human emperor? The Demon Lord said, it's too distant. There's no way to investigate it. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown slightly. He had a feeling that the Demon Lord was hiding something. However, Lin Feng understood the Demon Lord very well. If the Demon Lord didn't want to say something, no matter how much he asked the Demon Lord wouldn't say anything. The Demon Lord still wouldn't say anything. Therefore, even though he felt that the Demon Lord was hiding something from him, Lin Feng didn't continue asking the Demon Lord. Lin Feng tried to use his divine will to sense the human emperor's edict. He hoped to find something. Time slowly passed by. Lin Feng felt that he was about to enter an ancient and vast world. That world seemed to be the era of the 9th human emperor. Suddenly, Lin Feng felt a light flash in front of his eyes. Then, he appeared in a great hall. In that great hall, a woman wearing an imperial robe and a crown was sitting on a dragon throne, writing an edict. It's her. When he saw that woman, Lin Feng's face suddenly revealed an extremely shocked expression. That woman should be the 9th human emperor. And that woman, Lin Feng had actually seen her before. That woman actually looked exactly the same as the Red World Fairy. Holy shit, am I seeing things? Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter. He rubbed his eyes and looked at the woman again. However, Chapter 3883, Lin Feng still remembered that when he saw the Red World Fairy fighting the Donghuang Bell, the son of Donghuang, and other existences, a female holy emperor appeared behind her. That female holy emperor seemed to be the 9th human emperor. Unfortunately, Lin Feng couldn't see her face clearly at that time because her appearance was very blurry. However, Lin Feng was sure that he hadn't seen wrongly. The 9th human emperor looked exactly like the Red World Fairy. Unfortunately, when Lin Feng wanted to confirm it, he could no longer see the 9th human emperor's face clearly. Whoosh! Lin Feng only saw a flash of light before his eyes, and he retreated from that world. That world wasn't real. It should be a spiritual world imprinted by the human emperor's imperial decree. Lin Feng happened to sense it and entered that spiritual world. Then he saw an unbelievable scene. The Red World fairy summoned the ninth human emperor before. Moreover, the ninth human emperor's shadow fused with the Red World fairy. Now, I see that the ninth human emperor looks exactly like the Red World fairy. What does this mean? Is it just a coincidence? Lin Feng's expression became uncertain because he knew that there was a huge secret hidden in this. He already had some guesses in his heart. If the truth was as he guessed, then this was going to be shocking. The human emperor's imperial decree. The human emperor's imperial decree. Are you related to the orthodoxy of the ninth human emperor or not? Is the ninth human emperor related to the Red World fairy? Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter to himself. He felt that perhaps he needed to find the orthodoxy left behind after the fall of the ninth human emperor to solve the doubts in his heart. Lin Feng pinned his hopes on the human emperor's imperial decree. However, Lin Feng hadn't been able to find any useful clues for now. This would take time. Of course, Lin Feng also knew that this couldn't be rushed. Lin Feng put away the human emperor's imperial decree. The next day, Lin Feng, Nangong Xian, and Mu Liuxi set off for the Nangong family's ancestral land. After the Nangong family suffered a calamity, a portion of the family members who were lucky enough to survive escaped to the Nangong family's ancestral land. The Nangong family's ancestral land was very hidden. If one didn't know its location, they wouldn't be able to find it. Because Mu Liuxi and Nangong Xian were there, Lin Feng didn't summon the three-headed viper. Instead, he boarded Nangong Xian's ancient ship with Mu Liuxi and Nangong Xian to head to the Nangong family's ancestral land. Not long after they left the Divine Crow Island, Nangong Xian's, they blocked their way. Nangong Xian's stopped. It was a cultivator with blood-red hair. He was the same one who had lost against Lin Feng when he had tried to steal the imperial edict. Nangong Xian's Nangong. Nangong Ong was in clan. However, this cultivator was not from the blood hair race. He was a human cultivator. However, Lin Feng did not know why his hair was blood red. Perhaps it was because of the mutation of his bloodline, just like some mutated dire beasts. Since berserk beasts could mutate, in that case, naturally, the human race could have mutated as well. Looks like this person came for me. You guys wait here. I'll go meet this person. Lin Feng said. Young master, be careful. Mu Liuxi and Nangong Xian asked with concern. It's fine. Lin Feng replied nonchalantly. Then he walked out of the cabin and glanced at the blood-haired cultivator in front of him. Then he raised his eyebrows. He said, Fairy, you don't have to continue hiding in the void. If you have something to say, you can come out and say it face to face. Whoosh! With a flash of light, a woman stepped out of the void. She was none other than Yi Shiwen. It was the woman in white. She was a powerful figure from the undying realm. She smiled and said, Before the auction, we seem to have met before. Young master once heard me play the zither. Fairy, you have a good memory. That's right. I heard you play the zither in Yuntai River, but I didn't expect you to remember so many people. Lin Feng said, I don't remember everyone, but I can remember extraordinary people. And young master happens to be such a person. The woman in white said, I heard that you are from the undying realm. How should I address you? Lin Feng asked. My name is Tan Chuya. What's your name? The woman in white looked at Lin Feng. Ji. My name is Ji. Lin Feng replied. Then he continued, Are the two of you here for the human emperor's imperial decree? Yes, the blood-haired man, and Tan Chuya nodded at the same time. This thing belongs to me. You two can go back now. Lin Feng said lightly. If you want to live, then hand it over. If you want to die, you can continue to keep it. The man in crimson hair said indifferently. His eyes were crimson, which was extremely strange. Young master, it's better if you hand it over to avoid getting killed. Of course, I can give you some compensation. Tan Chuya said. Neither the man in crimson hair nor Tan Chuya saw Lin Feng as someone who could rival them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have faced Lin Feng as if everything was under their control. Tan Chuya instinctively felt that Lin Feng might be extremely extraordinary. But so what? No matter how extraordinary he was still far from being able to compare to her. I think the two of you are too arrogant. Lin Feng said, You only have one chance. If you can't catch it, there won't be a second chance. The man in crimson hair said indifferently, You should say that to yourself. Lin Feng said sarcastically, Ignorant and stupid. The man in crimson hair looked indifferent. He took a step forward. The endless blood sea surged. The world of blood sea directly shrouded Lin Feng. The world of blood sea instantly swallowed Lin Feng. God of blood sea. God of blood sea. A low voice came from the world of blood sea. Then the blood aura in the world of blood rolled. The blood aura directly condensed into a blood man. Those people were all covered in blood. They were all holding blood red blades and were moving towards Lin Feng. The blood man was the god of blood sea, the god that was born in the world of blood sea. At the same time, Tan Chuya also attacked. Light of death. Then Tan Chuya displayed a powerful technique as well. Rays of the light of the Grim Reaper began to condense. The rays of light of death were extremely terrifying. Anyone who was touched by the light of death would have their lifespan instantly taken away. This was an extremely overbearing superpower, which was somewhat similar to Lin Feng's Eyes of Death. Chapter 3884. The blood-haired man and Tan Chuya's attacks were very powerful. But so what? Lin Feng was not weak either. Facing the attacks of the two, Lin Feng also began to attack. Lin Feng walked in the void. God said, Let there be light. So, between heaven and earth, there will be light. God said, Let the light illuminate the world. So, light illuminates heaven and earth and dispels the darkness. God said that light represents justice and will defeat evil. So, when the light descends, the power of evil will be dispelled. Lin Feng's voice was low and sacred. It was like the godly voice of the heavenly Tao that came from endless time and space. His voice. When his voice fell, an ancient existence appeared behind Lin Feng. That ancient existence was surrounded by endless holy light. He was incomparably sacred and otherworldly. He was like the purest living thing between heaven and earth. It was a great, radiant angel with 36 wings. This was the awakened, great, radiant angel of one of the 9 emperor clones. When the power of darkness and evil descended on the world, it would be dispelled by the righteous power of the great radiant angel. After Lin Feng summoned the great radiant angel, the light shone in all directions. The god of the blood sea, the light of the death god. These were the evil existence or evil power. They were destined to be suppressed by the great radiant angel. The gods of the blood sea turned into ashes one by one. The light of the death god dissipated. Even the huge blood sea that the blood-haired man had condensed turned into nothingness and disappeared without a trace. He came from beyond the heavens and can kill immortals with one sword. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. He flew into the sky and then swooped down, turning into a ray of sword energy. Then, in midair, that ray of sword energy began to change continuously. In the blink of an eye, that ray of sword energy had become billions of rays. The densely packed rays of sword energy were endless, and all of them were aimed at the blood-haired man and the woman in white. The blood-haired man and the woman in white frowned slightly. They originally looked down on Lin Feng and did not think much of Lin Feng. However, now they realized that they had underestimated Lin Feng. Lin Feng's battle prowess was far more powerful than they had imagined. Massacre of all worlds! The blood-haired man's voice was cold as he condensed an extremely powerful spell. Endless killing light condensed and shot towards the sword aura that Lin Feng had transformed into. 10,000 flowers wither. Suddenly, Tan Shuya also displayed a powerful absolute art. Countless flowers appeared in the sky and bloomed in an instant. When they collided with the sword qi formed by Lin Feng, the flowers instantly withered. This was an extremely powerful divine ability that blocked the sword qi formed by Lin Feng. After the two divine abilities collided, it was hard to tell who had the upper hand. Lin Feng turned back into his real body and smiled icily. "You two are quite strong, aren't you?" But if that was all he had, only death awaits him today. Lin Feng's words were extremely domineering. He did not take the two of them seriously at all. Shameless boasting. The blood-haired man and Tan Shuya could not help but laugh coldly. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. Just as he was about to attack the two of them, Lin Feng suddenly saw a few cultivators flying over from afar. It was the son of Dong Huang, the lord of the undead, and the others. After seeing them, Lin Feng's expression changed drastically. These guys, they had actually walked out of the ancient battlefield. Could the ancient warship no longer restrain them? "Let's go." Lin Feng no longer paid attention to the blood-haired man and Tan Shuya. Instead, he quickly flew towards the ancient warship in the distance. When Nangong Xian, and Mu Liushi saw Lin Feng flying over, they both flew out of the ancient warship. Lin Feng took Nangong Xian, and Mu Liushi and left through the void. This change was too sudden. The blood-haired man and Tan Shuya were caught off guard. When they came back to their senses, Lin Feng had already disappeared with Nangong Xian, and Mu Liushi. Even if they wanted to chase after them, they did not know where to go. "It's that brat," a beautiful female cultivator said with a frown. This breathtakingly beautiful female cultivator was the transformation of the extremely ugly female cultivator from before. "We don't have time to deal with him. Let him go for now," the son of Dong Huang said. Then the group of people walked towards the Divine Crow Island. They did not know why they had come to the Divine Crow Island. The crimson-haired man and Tan Shuya frowned as they looked at the group of people. They didn't know who they were. However, the blood-haired man and Tan Shuya felt that this group of people was extremely terrifying. They quickly left and did not return to the Divine Crow Island. Half a month later, Lin Feng and the other two arrived at a sea surrounded by white fog. This sea was called the Sea of Illusions. It was said that within the illusory sea region, there were powerful natural illusory arrays everywhere. These natural illusory arrays could easily trap people to death. Therefore, very few cultivators would choose to enter this place. The ancestral land of the Nangong family was built in the Sea of Illusions. Nangong Xian took out a bronze lamp. The bronze lamp floated in the air and brought the three of them to the depths of the Sea of Illusions. A bronze lamp! It can break all illusions. Nangong Xian said. The bronze lamp brought Lin Feng and the others through layers of illusions. 5 days later, Lin Feng saw an island in front of him. This island was the ancestral land of the Nangong family. The ancestral land of the Nangong family was hidden in the Sea of Illusions. Even if one knew about it, one would not be able to find it without a special method. Only Nangong Xian and a few elders in the Nangong family knew about it. Ordinary people did not know about it. The three of them landed on the island. Seeing that Nangong Xian had returned, people came to welcome her. When the Nangong family was at its peak, there were hundreds of thousands of direct descendants and side branches. But now, there were only 8 or 9 people left in the ancestral land of the Nangong family. So many of their clansmen had died in that calamity to the Nangong clan. That catastrophe had left them with too much pain and grief. At the same time, they had engraved the hatred in their hearts. Seventh sister. Who is this little brother? Seventh sister actually brought him home. Could he be seventh brother-in-law? There was a girl among the people who came to welcome Nangong Xian. This girl was called Nangong Xiaoyu, and she was Nangong Xian's cousin. She asked mischievously with a grin. Chapter 3885. Hee, if seventh sister doesn't want me to say it, then I won't say it. I understand, the young girl said with a smile. Nangong Xian stretched out her right hand and tried to twist the young girl's arm. The young girl hurriedly ran away. She giggled and said, I'll go inform third grandfather. And the others, tell them that seventh sister has returned. The third grandfather she mentioned was the third elder of the Nangong clan. In the previous calamity, most of the upper echelons of the Nangong clan had died in battle. For example, Nangong Xian's grandfather, father, and uncles had all died in battle. Most of the elders were basically dead as well. Only a few elders had survived, and the one with the highest seniority was the third elder. Not long after, Lin Feng met the elders of the Nangong clan in the guest hall. The person in the lead was the third elder. The third elder had a tall and sturdy figure. His hair was white, but he had a righteous look on his face. These people obviously knew Mulyoshi. Therefore, their gazes did not linger on her. They all looked at Lin Feng. Although Lin Feng was young, his bearing was extraordinary. Even when he met these senior experts, he still had a calm expression on his face. The elders of the Nangong clan knew that Lin Feng was no ordinary person. I'm Nangong Yambo. How should I address you, little friend? Elder Nangong cupped his fists and asked. Senior, you can call me Ji, Lin Feng said. So it's little friend Ji. May I know where you're from? Who else is in the clan? Nangong Yambo asked. Nangong Xiaoya covered her mouth and giggled. This little girl should have just told the elders some of her guesses. Nangong Xian was the eldest daughter of the Nangong clan. When choosing a son-in-law, they naturally had to be careful. When they first met Lin Feng, the elders were quite satisfied. However, they still had to find out about Lin Feng's background. Nangong Xian knew that the elders had misunderstood. He hurriedly said, Elders, I'm sorry. Young Master Ji and I are only friends. It's not the kind of relationship you think we are. Nangong Xian glared at Nangong Xiaoya and said, Damned girl, what nonsense did you say in front of the elders again? Let's see how I'll deal with you. Nangong Xian Nangong Xiaoya's just friends. The elders looked at Nangong Xian's eyes. However, Nangong Xian's face, they were all old foxes' tea. They were old foxes teat. However, the elders didn't mention any names. Nangong Xian continued. Young Master Ji's cultivation is formidable and he's proficient in formations. I invited young Master Ji here in the hope that young Master Ji can help me enter the Underworld Island and find the Underworld King Herb. Although Nangong Xian was only a junior, her cultivation had almost caught up with the elders. She actually admired the young master in front of them so much. The elders knew that Lin Feng was definitely not an ordinary person. Although he looked ordinary, that was only his outer appearance. In the world of cultivators, there were many people who looked ordinary but were incomparably powerful. Those people usually kept a low profile. The elders finally understood why Nangong Xian was so fond of Lin Feng. Nangong Xian didn't care about many geniuses, but she admired Lin Feng. This was enough to show how extraordinary Lin Feng was. Netherworld Island is filled with danger. If you enter, you must be careful. You must be careful. Nangong Yama said. Lin Feng said, Senior, thank you for your reminder. It's dangerous. I already know, and I'm already mentally prepared. Nangong Xian said. Xian agreed to let young Master Ji comprehend the immortal scripture that our family obtained. I hope that the elders will open the sacred land. When the time comes, Xian will bring young Master Ji into the sacred land to comprehend the immortal scripture. Of course. Nangong Yama nodded. There was no free lunch in the world. Lin Feng agreed to help, so the Nangong family had to pay him. Let's bring young Master Ji to rest first. Tomorrow, we can bring him to comprehend the immortal scripture. Nangong Yama said. Then Xian will take her leave. Nangong Xian said. Lin Feng cupped his fists. Mu Liushi also bowed to the elders of the Nangong family. Then, the three of them left. Perhaps Nangong Xiaoya was afraid that Nangong Xian would settle accounts later. Therefore, she didn't follow. The next day, Nangong Xian arrived at Lin Feng's residence and said with a smile, The sacred land has been opened. Young master, follow me to comprehend the immortal scripture. All right, I'll have to trouble you to lead the way, Lin Feng said. He followed Nangong Xian to the mountain behind the island. The mountain behind the island was the Nangong family's sacred land. Under normal circumstances, no one could enter this place without permission. In the depths of the mountain, there was a cave residence. The immortal scripture was in the cave residence. This place was originally shrouded in a restrictive spell. Now, the restrictive spell had been removed by the elders. Lin Feng followed Nangong Xian into the cave residence. The cave residence wasn't very big. It was only about 40 to 50 square meters in size and 16 to 17 meters in height. There were many runes on the surrounding rock walls. The immortal scripture is on the rock walls. Those runes are the immortal scripture. However, even for my family, they can't arrange these runes correctly. Therefore, you have to comprehend it yourself. Everyone's comprehension is different. Therefore, the things that everyone can obtain are different. Nangong Xian said. Hearing this, Lin Feng nodded. He had already prepared for this. Young master, you can comprehend it here. Xian won't disturb you any longer. Nangong Xian said and left. Lin Feng wandered around the cave and carefully looked at the runes in the cave. These runes were extraordinary and emitted a faint immortal force. Lin Feng guessed that these immortal scriptures should have been comprehended by a cultivator who was in seclusion in the past and casually imprinted them on the cave. Therefore, the immortal scriptures here were in a mess. But for the cultivator who imprinted these runes, these immortal scriptures were naturally very orderly. He was able to arrange these immortal scriptures in a complete manner. I wonder what kind of immortal scripture it is. Lin Feng muttered to himself. Even if he couldn't arrange these immortal scriptures properly, it didn't matter. As long as he could comprehend something useful from them, Lin Feng was already very satisfied. Of course, if he could comprehend some powerful divine abilities from them, it would be extremely perfect. Lin Feng sat cross-legged. He tried to integrate himself into this world. As time passed, Lin Feng gradually entered a state of enlightenment. Dragon, soul, never die, will never extinguish. Suddenly, Lin Feng vaguely heard a low voice resounding in his mind. When he opened his eyes, Lin Feng found that he was still sitting cross-legged in the cave. Not far away, a middle-aged cultivator was sitting cross-legged. Chapter 3886. This middle-aged man should be the one who created the immortal scripture here. Although he couldn't see what he looked like, he could sense that this person had an extraordinary aura. When he was comprehending the immortal scripture, he imprinted runes on the wall. Lin Feng watched as he imprinted runes one after another. Soon, Lin Feng noticed something different. Lin Feng discovered that the runes on the immortal scripture weren't completely correct. In other words, some of the runes imprinted on the wall were correct, while others were wrong. Although the runes on the wall could form the immortal scripture, when combined together, there was one important point. The immortal scripture formed by the runes was only a draft. At most, it was equivalent to a first draft. The immortal scripture had to be simplified in order to obtain the real immortal scripture. As for how to simplify the contents, perhaps only this cultivator who had comprehended the immortal scripture in the past would know. However, Lin Feng didn't come out empty-handed. The immortal scripture imprinted on the wall contained some cultivation methods for divine abilities. Lin Feng comprehended a soul-type secret technique called the Myriad Dragon Divine Soul Dao. The Myriad Dragon Divine Soul Dao could help cultivators condense the souls of 10,000 dragons. The souls of 10,000 dragons could cause great damage to the souls of others. This was the terrifying aspect of the Myriad Dragon Divine Soul. Lin Feng liked this soul-type secret technique very much. Currently, Lin Feng only grasped one powerful soul-type secret technique, which was the Luya stargazing chart. Now that he had obtained the Myriad Dragon Divine Soul Dao, it was a very good supplement. Lin Feng came out of seclusion. Soon, Nangong Xian received the news and came to see Lin Feng with Mu Liushi. Did young master gain anything? Nangong Xian asked curiously. Lin Feng nodded. Congratulations, young master. Nangong Xian and Mu Liushi congratulated Lin Feng. They didn't ask Lin Feng what kind of secret technique he had obtained. However, no matter what secret technique he had obtained, they were sincerely happy for Lin Feng. Lin Feng said, "I'll rest for a day. Tomorrow, I'll go to Netherworld Island to look for the Netherworld King Herb. Have you prepared the map to Abyssal Island?" "It's ready. The map to Netherworld Island is imprinted in here." Nangong Xian took out a jade tube and handed it to Lin Feng. Lin Feng probed the jade tube with his divine sense. There was a map inside the jade tube. It was the map to the Netherworld Island. All right. Lin Feng accepted the jade tube. The next day, Nangong Xian and Mu Liushi personally sent Lin Feng off. "Young master, you must be careful. If it's too dangerous, please don't take the risk." Nangong Xian said. Lin Feng said, "Fairy, don't worry. I'll be fine. Just wait for my good news." Then, Lin Feng flew towards the Netherworld Sea region. The Netherworld Sea region was located at the border between the vast ocean world and the illusory sea region. That sea region was extremely dangerous. It was said that ghosts often appeared there. Therefore, ordinary cultivators didn't dare to enter that sea region. Lin Feng summoned the three-headed viper. Lin Feng sat cross-legged on the middle head of the three-headed viper. The three-headed viper quickly flew towards the Netherworld Sea region. 10 days later, they arrived at the Netherworld Sea region. At night, the Netherworld Sea region was extremely gloomy and terrifying. One ancient ship after another drifted over, and each ship had a person sitting on it. They were the undead of the sea. They were about to be extradited to the Netherworld. They entered the path to the Netherworld. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown. Ever since Lin Feng released the mummified old man, he had offended the Netherworld. Lin Feng's identity as the Netherworld Envoy, also known as the Ferryman of Souls, had been stripped by the Netherworld. If he entered the Netherworld, he would definitely be hunted down by the Netherworld. I need to get out quickly, or else. I'm afraid I'll be in big trouble. Lin Feng frowned. Those ancient ships couldn't be casually landed because they were the Netherworld ghost ships used by the undead. Those who sat on them would have their lifespan taken away. Of course, if Lin Feng was still the Netherworld Envoy, he naturally wouldn't be afraid of the Netherworld ghost ships. However, Lin Feng's identity as the Netherworld Envoy had been stripped away by the Netherworld. Where is the Netherworld Envoy hiding? Lin Feng couldn't help but squint his eyes and look at the surrounding sea region. Lin Feng knew that the Netherworld Envoy must be hiding nearby. However, the other party's methods were very strange, so it wouldn't be easy to find him. Pentakill Steel, come out! Lin Feng waved his hand and summoned the Pentakill Steel. In the past, he had obtained the Pentakill Steel together with Panda Cat and the others. There were a total of 5 Pentakill Steels. They were written with the words suppress, kill, exterminate, slash, and rend. The Pentakill Steel had a mysterious connection. When Lin Feng became the Netherworld Envoy, it was Panda Cat and the others who recommended him. However, he hadn't seen Panda Cat and the others for many years. The Pentakill Steel Lin Feng obtained was the one with the word kill written on it. The Pentakill Steel had a special connection with the creatures of the Netherworld, especially the Netherworld Envoys. Lin Feng planned to use the Pentakill Steel to force out the Netherworld Envoy that was hiding nearby. Powerful magic power poured into the Pentakill Steel, awakening it. It directly attacked the void in front of it. Bang! The void exploded, and an existence shrouded in darkness flew out. You found me? That existence looked at Lin Feng with a gloomy expression. He was the Netherworld Envoy of this place. Send me out. I'll spare your life. Or else. Only death awaits you. Lin Feng looked at the Netherworld Envoy with an indifferent expression. He. The Netherworld emissary let out a sinister laugh. He sneered and said, "What an ignorant and foolish human. I'm the Netherworld Envoy. I'm an undying existence. How can you kill me?" If a Netherworld Envoy was a cultivator from the outside world, it was equivalent to a temporary worker. They didn't have an undying body. However, the Netherworld Envoys that were born in the Netherworld had an undying body. Of course, they couldn't be considered undying. They could be killed, but as long as a remnant soul could escape, they could be reborn in the Netherworld. Lin Feng said with an indifferent expression, "You're really arrogant. Today I'll destroy your soul and make you disappear from this world completely." As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng leaped out. In midair, he waved his hand and summoned the Bell of Hell King. "Brat, die!" The Netherworld Envoy sneered and directly used the Netherworld Ghost Claw to grab Lin Feng. Chapter 3887. Hell King's Bell. The treasure you took out is the Hell King's Bell. Who are you? The Netherworld messenger was very knowledgeable. When he saw Lin Feng's ancient bell break his divine ability, he carefully looked at the ancient bell carefully. He realized that the ancient bell Lin Feng took out was the Hell King's bell. It was a treasure refined by the Hell King himself. The news of the Hell King's bell being stolen had already spread throughout the underworld. Back then, the existence that no one dared to mention had awakened and headed to the underworld. When the existences in the underworld heard the news, how could they dare to stay? They all left. Before they left, some of the higher-ups of the underworld wanted to take the Hell King's bell away. However, to the beings of the underworld, the Hell King's bell was a sacred object. How could a sacred object be touched so easily? Therefore, although the other party wanted to take the Hell King's bell away, they failed in the end and failed to take it away. When the existences in the underworld returned, they realized that the Hell King's bell had disappeared. The higher-ups of the underworld even ordered them to search for the Hell King's bell. Unfortunately, there were no clues. Therefore, many people thought that the existence that no one dared to mention had taken the Hell King's bell away. Since the Hell King's bell had fallen into the hands of that existence, even the higher-ups of the underworld did not dare to ask that existence for the Hell King's bell. Lin Feng sneered and said, "A few years ago, I was also a netherworld messenger. I was escorting a wooden coffin to the underworld. The underworld wanted to destroy the corpse in the coffin. I felt that it was strange, so I broke the seal on the coffin. Then a creature walked out of the coffin. It's you. It's you. You are the one who released that existence. You damned bastard. You are dead. You will become the enemy of the entire underworld." The netherworld messenger roared in anger when he heard Lin Feng's words. He was very agitated. This made Lin Feng very curious. Who was that mummified old man? Why were the beings of the underworld so afraid of him? Who is he? Lin Feng asked. "It's someone who can't be mentioned. You released that person. He even stole the Hell King bell. Brat, I don't need to kill you. There are countless people who want to kill you." The netherworld emissary looked coldly at Lin Feng and said, immediately after, he turned around and flew into the distance, wanting to escape. "Do you think you can escape?" Lin Feng sneered and quickly chased after him using the 8-directional world. He activated the Netherworld King's Bell with all his might and attacked the Netherworld emissary. Dong dong dong. The Nether King bell shook the void. A series of earth-shaking noises reverberated in the air. Every single sound. They all had extremely strong penetrative power, and this kind of penetrative power would cause great harm to the creatures of the underworld. The Hell King bell was the nemesis of the underworld's creatures. It could suppress the underworld's creatures and cause great harm to them. Now that Lin Feng's cultivation had greatly increased, the might released by the Hell King's bell was also getting stronger and stronger. The Netherworld King's bell's attacks landed on the Netherworld emissary's body one after another. Kacha kacha! The Netherworld emissary's body began to crack. "Ah, wait for me to return to the underworld. I will report your whereabouts. Let's see how you will die, then." The Netherworld emissary roared with hatred. His body was burning. As his body burned, his speed, it suddenly increased. The Netherworld emissary used some desperate secret techniques to increase his speed. Now, his speed, he had finally increased. The Netherworld emissary gradually left Lin Feng behind. What a fast speed! But you still can't escape. Lin Feng couldn't help but sneer. He began to use the space travel divine ability recorded in the Tao of Space, the 8-directional world, and the space travel. Lin Feng's speed increased explosively, and the distance between him and the Netherworld emissary closed again. Seeing Lin Feng chasing after him, the Netherworld emissary's face was about to turn green. He shouted, "Kid, we can negotiate. I will let you go now. Return to the world of the living. But you have to let me live. But don't worry. I will keep your matter a secret, and will definitely not report it. If you don't believe me, I can swear. Lin Feng sneered and said, It's useless to swear. I only want your life now. He continued to activate the Hell King bell. Swish, swish, swish. Under Lin Feng's activation, the Hell King bell released an even more terrifying attack. Beams of light shot towards the fleeing Netherworld emissary. Puff, puff, puff. The beams of light slammed into the Nether emissary's body and pierced through it. The Netherworld emissary screamed as if he was about to go crazy. He was powerful and confident that he could kill Lin Feng, but he couldn't do anything about Lin Feng, who had the Hell King bell. The pressure from the Hell King bell was too great. It almost made him despair. He continued to flee. When he was close to the whirlpool that led to the underworld, he finally saw the hope of escaping. However, in the next moment, his hope was completely cut off. The power of the Hell King bell was completely activated by Lin Feng. A phantom of the Hell King appeared from the Hell King bell. That phantom of the Hell King pounced towards the Netherworld emissary. When the phantom of the Hell King appeared, the Netherworld emissary felt that his body was unable to move. No, the Netherworld emissary screamed in horror. In the next moment, the Hell King bell slammed into the Netherworld emissary's body. Bang! Then, along with a violent explosion, the Netherworld emissary's body exploded. Swish! A token flew towards the Underworld emissary's Netherworld token. It was the symbol of the Netherworld emissary's identity. Lin Feng quickly flew over and grabbed the Netherworld token. Then he began to chant the Great Destiny technique. The Great Tao of Destiny. Let me take on the responsibility of this Netherworld emissary and become the new Netherworld emissary. As soon as he finished speaking, the power of destiny entered the Netherworld token. In an instant, Lin Feng's aura was imprinted on the Netherworld token. Lin Feng replaced it and became the owner of the Netherworld token. Under the cover of the power of destiny, the upper echelons of the Netherworld emissary hall didn't even know that a Netherworld emissary had been killed. Moreover, that Netherworld emissary's identity had been taken over by someone else. It's actually a purple gold grade Netherworld token. When Lin Feng saw the Netherworld talisman, he was astonished. The Netherworld token was divided into ordinary, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, purple gold, dark gold, legendary, and mythical grades. The higher the grade, the higher the status of the holder, and the greater the authority they could wield. The purple gold grade Netherworld token was the 6th grade among the 9 Netherworld tokens. It was considered an extremely high grade Netherworld token. Chapter 3888. Now, Lin Feng was able to deceive everyone. He had become a Netherworld messenger once again, and a high-level one at that. This made Lin Feng very happy because he could now use this new identity to enter the underworld. With this identity protecting him, it would be difficult for the people of the underworld to discover his true identity. Lin Feng kept the Netherworld token and flew out of the waterway to the underworld. The 3-headed viper followed closely behind Lin Feng. Lin Feng once again sat cross-legged on the head of the 3-headed viper. The 3-headed viper quickly flew in the direction of the underworld island. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Lin Feng saw an island in the distance. The island was shrouded in black fog. This should be the underworld island. The surroundings of the underworld island were densely covered with large space-time rifts. These large space-time rifts sealed the underworld island. From time to time, space-time power would spurt out from the large space-time rifts. The space-time power was naturally extremely terrifying. Ordinary cultivators would not be able to withstand it. Of course, even cultivators who cultivated the Tao of space had to be careful. The space-time power was one of the most difficult powers to control in the world. This power was extremely terrifying and could easily cause people to get lost in it. Once lost in it, the result would be disastrous. Lin Feng noticed that cultivators were coming to this place one after another. Many of them were wandering around the outer area. After asking around, Lin Feng found out that everyone was here for the underworld spring. It was rumored that there was a spring on the underworld island. The spring water flowed from the underworld. Extreme death, extreme life. Therefore, the underworld spring contained endless vitality. It was rumored that, if he drank the nether spring water, then his physical body would be thoroughly cleansed. Any hidden ailments or internal injuries on his body would all be swept away. In addition, it was said that the underworld spring could greatly awaken a cultivator's vitality and increase their cultivation talent. Of course, the most important point was that the underworld spring could help a cultivator open the underworld acupoint. The nether acupoint was one of the most important acupoints in the human body. The reason why it was called that was because it was one of the death acupoints of the human body. If the enemy's attack were to land on the nether acupoint, it would easily cause great damage to the cultivator. However, there was no way to open the netherworld acupoint, nor was there any way to cultivate. One could only rely on some natural treasures to open the netherworld acupoint. Treasures of heaven and earth that could open the netherworld acupoint were extremely rare. However, the nether spring was one of the treasures that could open the nether cave. It was rumored that there was a divine treasure within the netherworld acupoint. Although the netherworld acupoint was one of the death acupoints of the human body, the netherworld acupoint was a divine treasure. However, when a cultivator opened their nether acupoint, it was equivalent to opening a divine treasury. At that time, he would obtain some unimaginable abilities. Whether this legend was true or not was not clear because there were too few people who had opened the netherworld cave. If someone really opened the netherworld acupoint, the news would not be leaked so easily. Other than the nether spring, it was said that there were many other hidden treasures on Nether Island. There were even rumors that Netherworld Island was the place where a certain Nether King was buried. Although this rumor had never been confirmed by anyone, many people believed in this rumor. One after another, cultivators took the risk to enter Nether Island. First, they had to pass through the area densely packed with space-time rifts. Some cultivators had extraordinary means, or they had amazing magic treasures on them. They successfully passed through the area densely packed with space-time rifts. Then, they landed on Nether Island. However, there were also many cultivators who were eventually devoured by the space-time rifts. From time to time, screams could be heard coming from the rifts. The screams came from the cultivators who were devoured by the space-time rifts. It was likely that those cultivators had all suffered in the end. Lin Feng let the three-headed viper enter the space-time rift. Then, he flew in the direction of Nether Island. He flashed and moved, avoiding the numerous space-time rifts that swallowed him. In the end, Lin Feng also succeeded in landing on Nether Island. Roar. After landing on Nether Island, Lin Feng heard a series of dragon roars coming from the island. Then he saw a huge dragon charging out of the island. The huge dragon was pitch black in color and had extremely thick hind legs. However, what was surprising was that the huge dragon had four front limbs. It was extremely strange. Four-winged demonic dragon. This is an extremely ancient earth dragon. It's basically impossible to see this kind of creature anymore. I didn't expect such a ferocious beast to actually live on this island. The demon lord said, Lin Feng asked, "Is this kind of four-winged demonic dragon very powerful?" "Yes, of course." The demon lord nodded. The four-winged demonic dragon rushed into the ocean. Next, the four-winged demonic dragon stirred up huge waves that swept towards the cultivators in the void. It was already very difficult for those cultivators to avoid the space-time rifts in the void. Therefore, there was no need to even mention the fact that they had to dodge the towering waves. Many people were swept into the sea by the huge waves, and then swallowed by the four-winged demonic dragon. Lin Feng did not stop at the outer area. He directly entered the island. Inside the island, the roars of beasts and cries of apes could be heard. The ancient forest was very dense, and the ground was covered with very thick leaves. Walking on the leaves would make a rustling sound. Lin Feng walked all the way inside. After hearing the legend of the Nether Spring, Lin Feng could not help but feel a little interested in it. Therefore, Lin Feng planned to look for the Nether Spring after finding the Nether King herb. If he could obtain some Nether Spring water, it would be very beneficial to his body. Of course, what interested Lin Feng the most was that the Nether Spring could open up the Nether acupoint. If that was the case, finding the Nether Spring would be a great opportunity. A roar came from the depths of the island. 1,000-meter tall golden titan stood up. Next, another roar was heard, and a golden giant with 4 arms, who was also 1,000 meters tall, stood up. The golden titan and the 4-armed golden titan fought fiercely. Their battle shook the earth and the mountains. Good heavens! The golden titan and the 4-armed golden titan are both races that are rarely seen in the outside world. Why are these two terrifying existences fighting each other? Are they fighting over some kind of treasure? Chapter 3889. Lin Feng discovered that there were also cultivators scattered around the area of the battle. At this moment, they were all watching the battle between the golden titan and the 4-armed golden giant. Lin Feng stood on top of a large tree, looking towards the direction of the battle. He was looking for the reason why the golden titan and the 4-armed golden giant were fighting. But Lin Feng didn't find anything precious. He couldn't help but mutter, could it be that the truth was different from his guess? The battle between the golden titan and the 4-armed golden giant wasn't actually because of the treasure, but because of other reasons? Lin Feng didn't care about the reason for their battle. Lin Feng went around this area and rushed towards the depths. Brat! Die! A terrifying existence rushed out from the forest. It was a forest monster. This kind of forest monster had a huge body and terrifying strength. Its appearance was somewhat similar to a human's, but it was extremely ugly. The forest monster that attacked Lin Feng was about 100 meters tall. He stretched out his right hand and pointed directly at Lin Feng. He wanted to kill Lin Feng. Lin Feng directly hugged the forest monster's huge finger. Then, he flung the forest monster away. Bang, bang, bang. A large area of ancient trees were smashed by the forest monster's huge body. The forest monster jumped up from the ground and continued to roar. Brat! Die! This time, he raised his right fist and punched towards Lin Feng. That terrifying punch was heavy and powerful. Its power was astonishing. It was extremely terrifying. But Lin Feng had an indifferent expression, facing the forest monster's punch. Lin Feng activated the 6 times dragon elephant arm and punched towards the forest monster. Bang! Accompanied by the earth-shaking sound of the collision, there was suddenly a sound. Lin Feng and the forest monster fiercely collided. The forest monster's huge body was directly sent flying several thousand meters by Lin Feng. Then it crashed into a mountain peak. That mountain peak couldn't withstand such a powerful impact. It directly broke apart. As for the mountain peak after the fracture, It collapsed with a loud crash. Lin Feng quickly flew towards the mountain monster that was crushed under the rubble. He looked down at the mountain monster and said indifferently, "I'll ask you some questions. Answer me honestly. If you don't, I'll kill you immediately." The giant monster in the forest had activated its spiritual sense and was extremely intelligent. Now, it was no match for Lin Feng. Naturally, he didn't dare to resist Lin Feng. It got up from the ground and hurriedly nodded its huge head. "Is there any Hades king grass on this island?" Lin Feng asked. "There is netherworld king grass, but I've never seen it before. But I heard that it grows in the depths of the island on the third Devil Mountain among the 9 Devil Mountains." The giant mountain monster said, "What about the netherworld spring? You know where it is?" Lin Feng asked. "It's said that the 9th Devil Mountain is an extremely dangerous place. Rumor has it that it's the burial ground of the Nether King. It's shrouded in a powerful magnetic field. Anyone who gets close to it will die, without a corpse." The giant mountain monster answered honestly, "If it's so difficult to obtain the netherworld spring, why do so many cultivators come here to take the risk?" Lin Feng couldn't help but frown. "It's because the netherworld spring will fly out every once in a while. If you can grasp the opportunity, you might be able to obtain some netherworld spring." "Good. At least you're honest. I'll let you off today. However, you better keep your eyes open. You can't afford to offend just anyone. Not everyone is as benevolent as I am." Lin Feng glanced at the giant mountain monster indifferently, then soared into the sky and flew away. Seeing Lin Feng fly away, the giant mountain monster heaved a sigh of relief. Then it said gloomily, "Of course I'm picking on the weak. Who would have thought that I would run into a wolf in sheep's clothing?" Lin Feng naturally couldn't hear the giant mountain monster's mutterings. He quickly flew into the depths of the island. Not long after, more than 10 cultivators rushed out of the mountain forest and blocked Lin Feng's path. There were both men and women among these cultivators. They seemed to be from large factions. Their auras were deep and powerful. The old man in the lead was especially unfathomable. After seeing the old man, Lin Feng couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. That old man was actually an emperor-level expert. Moreover, his cultivation level wasn't low. "Brother, I'm sorry. We're cultivators from the Sacred War Alliance. We're planning to invite you to explore a secret place. When the time comes, if we obtain an opportunity, we'll naturally give you a share. You won't refuse, right?" A cultivator in golden clothes stepped forward and looked at Lin Feng as he spoke. Although his words sounded like he was discussing with Lin Feng, his tone wasn't one that sounded like he was discussing with Lin Feng. However, his tone was not one of negotiation. Instead, it was a tone that left no room for doubt. If Lin Feng dared to say no, he would definitely suffer a thunderous attack. Lin Feng naturally didn't believe that they were here to invite him to explore that secret place. These people obviously wanted to find a few cannon fodder to explore the way for them. This kind of thing was commonplace in the world of cultivators. This was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. So many times, even if you know that you're being forced to do something that might cost you your life. However, you can't refuse. If you're not strong enough, if you refuse, that's simply courting death. Lin Feng was quite interested in the secret place these people were talking about. He nodded and said, "Okay, I'm willing to join. I'll explore the secret place with everyone." "Ha ha ha. Brother is really a straightforward person," the golden-robed cultivator said with a smile. Some cultivators passed by here one after another, but they were all stopped by this group of people. Then the golden-robed cultivator would go up and tell them why they were stopped. Many people's faces changed greatly, but they were afraid of the power of these cultivators from the Sacred War Alliance. They didn't dare to resist. They could only agree. But there were also cultivators who turned around and fled into the distance after hearing the golden-robed cultivators' words. Those cultivators who fled for their lives were all killed by the golden-robed cultivator with a golden snake sword. Seeing this scene, many people kept quiet out of fear. These cultivators didn't expect to get any opportunities. They just wanted to leave safely. In the end, these people from the Sacred War Alliance found a total of more than 20 people to explore the way for them. Everyone, don't worry. We're not unreasonable people. If there's wealth, we'll get it together. If there's an opportunity, we'll get it together. We, the Sacred War Alliance, will not treat everyone unfairly. The golden-robed cultivator said. Many cultivators looked gloomy, but they didn't dare to refute the golden-robed cultivator's words. There's no time to lose. Let's go now. The golden-robed cultivator said. No one dared to hesitate and quickly followed this group of people. 6 hours later, they arrived at the side of a huge abyss. They saw that the abyss was pitch black and grayish-brown gas was emitted from time to time. At the bottom of the abyss, there seemed to be some terrifying creature hibernating. Chapter 3890, the golden-robed man said, Everyone, the place we're looking for is at the bottom of the abyss. Everyone, please explore the way ahead. If you encounter any danger, we'll quickly rush over to support everyone. So, you don't have to worry about your safety. After hearing the golden-robed man's words, many people couldn't help but secretly curse him for being despicable and shameless. He actually had the nerve to say such shameless words. In such a dangerous place, if they really encountered danger at the bottom, would anyone be able to escape with their lives? It was simply impossible for anyone to escape. In the end, they would die in the abyss. That was the most probable outcome. As for the golden-robed man's words about helping everyone if they encountered danger, no one believed him at all. If they really encountered danger, these people would naturally have enough time to escape with them, following behind. However, even though they were gnashing their teeth in hatred, no one dared to refute the golden-robed man. Otherwise, only death would await them. Everyone, let's move now. The golden-robed man said. Everyone had no choice but to fly down. After everyone entered the abyss, the cultivators of the Sacred War Alliance also entered the abyss. These people pulled away from Lin Feng and the others by a distance. If there was any danger, the group in front of them would act as cannon fodder, and they would have enough time to react. This abyss was extremely deep. Originally, everyone was worried that they would be attacked by some unknown existence while hiding at the bottom of the abyss. However, what made everyone heave a sigh of relief was that the journey was rather smooth. They didn't encounter any danger. Everyone finally flew to the bottom of the abyss. Soon, the cultivators of the Sacred War Alliance also flew down. Fellow cultivators, let's go deeper and take a look. I'll have to trouble you to find a way. The golden-robed man said. Everyone had no choice but to continue flying deeper. Look, bones. Someone pointed at some bones scattered on the ground. The bones here weren't as simple as one. Along the way, there were many bones scattered around. This caused many people's expressions to become solemn. Suddenly, a small bug flew to the neck of one of the cultivators. Next, it laid down on the cultivator's neck and lightly stung him. The cultivator reached out and grabbed the little bug. Then he pinched it to death. As for the bug, green liquid flowed out. It was very disgusting. That cultivator took out a silk cloth, then used it to wipe his hand clean, then threw it on the ground. However, it didn't take long before that cultivator's body violently trembled. Seeing this scene, everyone's expression couldn't help but change. "Brother, what's wrong with you?" Someone looked at the cultivator and asked in confusion. However, that cultivator directly fell to the ground. His body twitched a few times before he completely stopped moving. "He's died," said Lin Feng after inspecting it. "Just now, I think I saw him being stung by a small insect," a cultivator said. Hearing this, many people's S's, activated S's. When the defensive magic weapon was activated, everyone was enveloped by the light shield released by the defensive magic weapon. B. There, B. To be exact, there were simply too many of them to count. After seeing this scene, many people's faces changed greatly. "Hurry, run!" The cultivators didn't dare to stay, and they quickly turned back. However, the green bugs were too fast. It didn't take long for them to catch up to the group of cultivators. The densely packed green bugs enveloped the defensive light barrier protecting the cultivators. Next, the green bugs began gnawing at the defensive light barrier protecting the cultivators. The green bugs were very strange. They seemed capable of devouring energy. Due to that, the defensive light barrier created by the magic treasures was gradually eaten clean by the green bugs. After gnawing away at the defensive light barrier, the green bugs immediately surrounded the cultivators. Screams rang out incessantly as the cultivators who were surrounded by the green bugs were quickly devoured clean. "Insectivorous bird, go eat the bugs." The golden-clothed cultivator summoned a spirit bird. The spirit bird was covered in fiery red feathers. Its body was as majestic as an eagle's, but its mouth was flat like a duck's. It was a very strange spirit bird. Lin Feng had never seen this spirit bird before. The spirit bird let out a sharp, ear-piercing cry. Then it opened its mouth and sucked. The bugs flew uncontrollably toward the spirit bird and were devoured by the spirit bird. However, half of the cultivators had already died under the attack of the bugs. "You brought a spirit bird that can restrain the bugs. Why didn't you release this spirit bird in advance?" Someone asked with a gloomy expression. His companions were among the dead cultivators. Now, he was burning with anger. The golden-clothed cultivator said indifferently, "We didn't know there was such a strange bug here. If we did, we would have released the spirit bird in advance." Naturally, no one believed him. In the eyes of the cultivators of the Sacred War Alliance, they were just cannon fodder. Since they were cannon fodder, they were sent to die. If they released the spirit bird in advance, it might encounter other dangers. The other party didn't want to take the risk. Human lives were cheaper than grass. That was what it meant. The cultivator wanted to say something more, but he was stopped by Lin Feng. "There's no need to argue. Otherwise, you'll lose your life here," Lin Feng said in a deep voice. The cultivator nodded and didn't say anything else. "Everyone, the crisis has been resolved. Everyone, continue to lead the way," the golden-clothed cultivator said. No one said anything and continued to walk deeper into the cave. Soon, a huge cave appeared in everyone's line of sight. "These people are ruthless. When they come, they'll definitely attack us. Let's take advantage of the fact that they haven't come yet. Let's go in first and see if there's any opportunity," a cultivator said in a deep voice. Everyone nodded. Everyone rushed toward the cave in front. Soon, the cultivators of the Sacred War Alliance arrived at the depths. When they arrived, Lin Feng and the others had already entered the cave. "Damn it! These people entered the cave in advance," the golden-clothed cultivator said with a gloomy expression. "Enter the cave and kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive," the Sovereign Lord Old Man said in a sinister voice. Chapter 3891. The cave was deep and serene. The group quickly moved towards the depths of the cave. Everyone was moving at an extremely fast speed. After an unknown amount of time, the narrow cave began to widen. The people from the Sacred War Alliance were all very cautious. Thus, Lin Feng felt that this place was definitely not as peaceful as it seemed. There might be other dangers. Not long after, they arrived at the belly of a mountain. There were many passages in the belly of the mountain, all of which led to the depths of the cave. Everyone stood in the belly of the mountain and observed, preparing to choose a passage to enter. However, at that moment, a series of deep roars came from one of the passages. Something seems to be coming. Everyone be careful. Lin Feng couldn't help but remind everyone. Everyone took out their magic treasures and looked at the passage in the depths of the cave nervously. Not long after, a ferocious beast shrouded in darkness rushed out. The ferocious beast had the appearance of a swanee. It had dragon legs and a pair of wings on its back. It stepped on demonic fog and hovered in midair, not landing on the ground. What kind of monster is that? Everyone looked at each other. They had never seen such a creature before. Even the classic of mountains and seas didn't record such a creature. Roar! The creature with dragon horns and wings let out a deep roar and pounced on the group. A foul wind blew and blood chi surged. The creature with dragon horns and wings was very powerful. It sent a dozen cultivators flying with a single slap of its claws. What a powerful force! Lin Feng was horrified. This creature was too terrifying. It wouldn't have been a big deal if it had sent others flying, but even he was sent flying. It was hard to imagine what kind of terrifying creature it was. At that moment, the sound of breaking wind came from the passage behind them. Clearly, the cultivators from the Sacred War Alliance had arrived. There was only one way out. Naturally, they couldn't turn back now. They could only go deeper into the cave. There might be some amazing opportunities waiting for them there. Let's go into the passage, a cultivator said as he rushed into the passage. Because they had to avoid the creature with dragon horns and wings, most of them spread out and rushed into different passages. 2 cultivators rushed into a passage with Lin Feng. The creature with dragon horns and wings didn't pursue the 3 of them. Instead, he entered another passageway to pursue the other cultivators. This made Lin Feng and the other 2 let out a long sigh of relief. They quickly rushed towards the depths. Now that they had arrived here, there were pursuers behind them. Therefore, everyone wanted to enter the depths and see if they could obtain some opportunities there. Everyone's speed was extremely fast. As they continued to go deeper, they discovered that there were some forks in the road. However, Lin Feng and the other 2 followed a passage and headed towards the deepest part of the cave. When they arrived at the deepest part, they saw a cave. Profound Wind Demon Mansion. There was a plaque above the cave mansion, and the name of the cave mansion was written on the plaque. It seemed that this place was once the cultivation ground of a monster. As for the origin of the creature with dragon horns and wings that occupied this place, no one knew. The 3 of them quickly entered the cave mansion. When they entered the cave mansion, they saw 5 mysterious balls of light floating in the cave mansion. They didn't know what was inside. The other 2 cultivators looked at each other and attacked Lin Feng from both sides. Each of them threw a punch at Lin Feng. Lin Feng quickly retreated and dodged the attacks. What? The 2 of you want to take it for yourselves? Lin Feng sneered at the 2 of them. Not long ago, they were still in danger together. But now, the 2 of them wanted to kill him and take his treasures. The world of cultivators was indeed an extremely cruel world. To put it bluntly, the world of cultivators was a world where they could go through thick and thin together, but they couldn't share glory and glory together. That's right. We want to take these things for ourselves. The person on the left said coldly, "Kid, don't blame us for being ruthless. The The world of cultivators has always been this cruel to prevent you from leaking information and taking revenge on us in the future. Now, we can only kill you." The cultivator on the right couldn't help but sneer. The two of them rushed towards Lin Feng again, wanting to kill Lin Feng together. One of them used a move, Tiger Subduing Divine Fist. The other used a move, Mad Devil God Palm. The two of them cooperated very well. It was obvious that they had worked together for a long time to be able to have such chemistry. You don't know what's good for you. There are some people you can't afford to offend. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent as he slapped towards the two of them. A huge energy palm print condensed in the void. The energy palm print blasted towards the two of them. A terrifying aura spread out. The two of them felt the powerful pressure of the energy palm print, and their expressions changed drastically. They felt that they were as weak as ants. Lin Feng was too young, so the two of them underestimated Lin Feng's cultivation. That was why they wanted to kill him and take his treasures. But now, the two of them realized how terrifying the existence they had offended was. "Spare us! Spare us! We won't dare to do it again." The two of them begged for mercy loudly, hoping that Lin Feng would spare their lives. However, Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. He sneered and said, "The two of you have ulterior motives against me. How can I spare your lives?" As soon as he finished speaking, the energy palm print condensed in the void had already blasted down. Facing the attack of the energy palm print, the two of them couldn't resist. Bang! Bang! Two consecutive sounds of violent collisions rang out, and the two cultivators were instantly killed. As for Lin Feng, he collected 5 energy light masses. As for what was in the 5 energy light masses, Lin Feng didn't know. He had to leave and find out later. And now was not the time to find out what these things were. Lin Feng quickly left the cave residence and went outside. However, as soon as he came out, a group of cultivators from the Sacred War Alliance had already rushed over and surrounded Lin Feng. These people looked at Lin Feng with cold eyes. "I didn't expect that, in the end, you would get the thing inside. Hand it over," the golden-robed man said in an unquestionable tone, as if he was ordering his dog servant. Lin Feng glanced at the golden-robed man indifferently and replied indifferently, "Why should I give it to you? What do you think you are?" After hearing Lin Feng's words, everyone was stunned on the spot. They couldn't even believe what they had heard. Killing intent appeared on the golden-robed man's face. He looked coldly at Lin Feng and said, "You reckless thing. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." As soon as he finished speaking, the golden-robed man rushed toward Lin Feng and slapped his palm toward Lin Feng. Chapter 3892. The golden-robed man's lifespan was about 3 million years, which wasn't particularly old. His cultivation base was at the Sage Emperor level. 3 million years old. A Sage Emperor level cultivation base was already extremely extraordinary. It seemed like this golden-robed man's status was also extremely high among the myriad races. After the fall of the 5 great ancestors of the Sacred War Alliance, the Sacred War Alliance no longer had any sovereign lord-level experts. Therefore, the true rulers were the Sage Emperors. Of course, things had changed during this period of time. During this period of time, some of the hidden experts of the myriad races had emerged. These hidden experts had sealed themselves in stones and generally wouldn't choose to take the initiative to come out. However, with the appearance of the 5 signs of decay, the world had changed drastically. These hidden experts also knew that the world had changed drastically. This was their last chance to fight. If they didn't come out now, they probably wouldn't have the chance to come out again. Although the golden-robed man's cultivation base was quite tyrannical, it was still too far away from Lin Feng. Lin Feng glanced at the golden-robed man indifferently as he faced the golden-robed man's attack. A terrifying aura emitted from Lin Feng's body. When that terrifying aura enveloped the golden-robed man, the golden-robed man's expression changed drastically. Lin Feng's aura was just too strong. It made him feel as insignificant as an ant. It made him feel like he was facing an immortal god king. Only now did the golden-robed man realize that he had made a big mistake. The young cultivator in front of him wasn't someone to be bullied at all. The golden-robed man thought of the idiom, playing the pig to eat the tiger. Now, he really wanted to curse Lin Feng. However, the golden-robed man knew that his situation wasn't good. He shouted, "Ancestor, save me!" The sovereign lord-level old man was an expert who had walked out of the Godstone. He was one of the hidden experts of the myriad races. Now that he sensed the terrifying aura emitted from Lin Feng's body, the old man shouted sternly, "Kid, let's see if you dare to attack." The old man shouted as he rushed toward Lin Feng, wanting to save the golden-robed man. "Why wouldn't I dare?" Lin Feng sneered. Then, a terrifying palm strike directly toward Lin Feng. The power of the palm strike was extremely powerful. It pierced the sky and instantly slammed into the golden-robed man's body. With a bang, the golden-robed man took on Lin Feng's attack. His physical body directly, and his body and soul on the spot. "You're courting death," said the great D-level old man, throwing a punch at Lin Feng. Lin Feng wasn't afraid. He slapped his palm towards the sovereign lord realm old man. When the palms of both sides collided, the surrounding void was directly shattered. Then Lin-robed man, Lin Ti, they were evenly matched. "You're so young, but you can display the strength of an sovereign lord. Who are you?" The sovereign lord-level old man stared at Lin Feng, as if he wanted to see through Lin Feng. Lin Feng's strength was too shocking. It was hard for him to accept. However, this was Lin Feng's strength. The sovereign lord-level old man had no choice but to believe it. "Who am I?" "You don't have the right to know." Lin Feng looked at the sovereign lord-level old man indifferently. "Junior, you're too arrogant." The sovereign lord-level old man shouted angrily. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Lin Feng. The magic energy in his body began to circulate as if he wanted to attack Lin Feng. However, at that moment, a deep roar came from the tunnel. Then, the terrifying creature with dragon horns and wings rushed out from one of the tunnels. Halfway through its journey, the creature's body began to change. Its body became illusory. In the next moment, its body disappeared. Invisibility. Many people couldn't help but show a horrified expression. This creature with dragon horns and wings was too strange. It knew how to hide itself. This was too unbelievable. Pooh, pooh, pooh. With a series of tearing sounds, the cultivators of the Sacred War Alliance had huge wounds on their necks by sharp claw lights. Blood gushed out from the wounds. One by one, the cultivators of the Sacred War Alliance fell to the ground. Then their bodies twitched violently a few times, and they died. "Let's go," the sovereign lord-level old man said in a low voice. He couldn't care less about Lin Feng now. The creature with dragon horns and wings knew how to hide itself. This method was too terrifying. If they continued to stay here, they would definitely die. He was very clear about this, so it was best to leave now. Whoosh, 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 under the lead of the sovereign lord-level old man. The cultivators of the Sacred War Alliance rushed out of the tunnel. Pooh, pooh, pooh. Before they entered the tunnel, a few more people's necks were torn by the terrifying creature. They fell to the ground and died quickly. Lin Feng also entered a tunnel. He had already obtained the thing here, so the most important thing now was to leave. Now, Lin Feng couldn't wait to see what was inside the 5 balls of light. However, when he rushed out, Lin Feng's heart was shrouded in a layer of shadow. This feeling was very uncomfortable. Lin Feng's expression became serious. The creature with dragon horns and wings was chasing after him. It must be that guy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such a feeling. Lin Feng opened his Eye of Origin, also known as the Heavenly Demon Snake Eye, and looked behind him. The Eye of Origin could see through all illusions. When Lin Feng turned his head, he saw that the terrifying creature with dragon horns and wings had already jumped up and pounced at him. After seeing this scene, Lin Feng couldn't help but be shocked. Fortunately, he opened his Eye of Origin in time to find the location of this existence. Otherwise, he would be in danger. This guy's ability to hide was too terrifying. It could kill its target silently. Lin Feng released his draconic elephant arm strength, which was 6 times stronger than normal, and threw a punch at the cultivator. Bang! Lin Feng's fist collided with the gigantic claw. Both of them were blown away. Lin Feng's Dracophon arm strength was 6 times stronger than the gigantic claw. The gigantic claw and the gigantic claw collided. Both of them were blown away. Chapter 3893. Lin Feng had no interest in continuing the battle with this terrifying being. Killing this being didn't seem to bring him much benefit. Moreover, if a battle really broke out, it was hard to say who would be the one to kill who. Lin Feng felt that even if he used all his means, he wouldn't be a match for this terrifying being. Therefore, when the terrifying being circulated its demonic energy, Lin Feng once again rushed outside. World of 8 directions and space traversal. Lin Feng's speed was raised to the extreme, instantly widening the distance between the two of them. The terrifying being with dragon horns and wings roared furiously. Its attack was about to succeed. However, Lin Feng had already escaped its attack range. Naturally, this made the terrifying being quite angry. The terrifying being roared and continued to chase after Lin Feng. The terrifying being's speed was extremely fast, but compared to Lin Feng's peak speed, it still seemed to be a little slower. In the end, Lin Feng rushed out of the cave. However, the terrifying being seemed to be restricted in some way. When it rushed to the entrance of the cave, it stopped. Then, the terrifying being roared furiously at the entrance of the cave. At this time, Lin Feng was already far away from the area. He quickly found a more secluded place, opened up a cave, and set up several concealment restrictions. Then, he entered the cave and took out the 5 balls of light. The 5 balls of light floated in midair, each of them emitting a shocking energy fluctuation. Although he didn't know what was inside these balls of light, Lin Feng felt that the things inside were definitely not to be underestimated. Lin Feng reached out and grabbed the first ball of light. The divine light receded, and a pill appeared in Lin Feng's hand. The pill was a milky white pill. It was obviously an immortal pill, surrounded by immortal energy. However, it was unknown what kind of pill it was. Demon Lord, do you know what this pill is? Lin Feng asked. It seems to be the 9-spirit divine yang pill. It's an immortal pill that can heal the soul. The Demon Lord said. There were 2 types of injuries that cultivators feared the most. One was a Tao injury. One was the injury to the soul. These 2 kinds of injuries were difficult to cure with medicine. However, it didn't mean that all medicinal stones couldn't cure them. There were still some medicinal pills that could cure these 2 kinds of injuries, but these medicinal pills were extremely rare. Even if you had money, you couldn't buy it. Therefore, when Lin Feng heard the Demon Lord say that this pill was a pill that could heal the soul, he was shocked. This caused Lin Feng's face to involuntarily reveal a look of joy. cultivators did indeed need medicinal pills to treat Tao injuries and soul injuries. Although it might not be used, it was better to prepare for emergencies. What he was most afraid of was that when he needed this kind of medicinal pill, he couldn't take it out. At that time, it would be a real tragedy. Lin Feng sealed the pill and put it away in his empty and time space. Then, he grabbed the item in the second light ball. The item in the second light ball was actually a jade pendant. The image of a man was imprinted on the front of the jade pendant, and a line of poetry was written on the back. The content was as follows: "The wind and clouds of the world come from my generation. Once I enter the Jianghu, time rushes by. The imperial hegemony is a matter of conversation and laughter, but life is nothing more than a drunken stupor." The content of this short poem was quite domineering, but he didn't know who wrote this short poem. Lin Feng carefully studied this jade pendant, but he couldn't find anything special from the jade pendant. However, Lin Feng instinctively felt that this jade pendant wasn't ordinary. Lin Feng also put away the jade pendant, waiting to carefully study this jade pendant in the future. Then, Lin Feng grabbed the item in the third light ball. The item in the third light ball also appeared in front of Lin Feng's eyes. This thing turned out to be a crystal. This was a light blue crystal stone, half the size of a fist. It was magnificent, and he didn't know what kind of crystal stone it was. It seems to be a kind of time crystal. The demon lord looked at the crystal stone in Lin Feng's hand with some surprise and uncertainty. The time crystal, that was truly astonishing. It was able to help Lin Feng increase his time space. The flow of time in Lin Feng's time space was 5 times faster than the outside world, but if he continued to increase it, the flow of time would definitely increase again. However, now wasn't the time to increase his time space. After the matters here were over, Lin Feng planned to go into seclusion. At that time, there would be many things to deal with. For example, checking what was in the 8th level of the Chonglu Devil Palace, trying to open the evil corpse ring, increasing his time space, and so on. All these things were waiting for Lin Feng to do. Lin Feng kept the time crystal. Then, he took out the item in the 4th light ball. The item in the 4th light ball was actually a leaf. This was a leaf that was already yellowed, but this leaf actually had a trace of vitality lingering around it. This made Lin Feng extremely astonished, who knew how many millions of years ago this leaf was left behind, but it still contained vitality. This leaf's origin was extraordinary. What kind of tree did this leaf come from? Lin Feng asked the demon lord, but this time, even the demon lord couldn't see the extraordinariness of this leaf. Lin Feng kept the leaf. Then, he took out the 5th item. The 5th item was actually a bracelet. There were some small words engraved on this bracelet, but after so many years, they were too blurred, so he couldn't see what the words were. Lin Feng tried to use his divine will to sense this bracelet. Suddenly, Lin Feng felt as though he was being pulled into a certain space-time. "Big brother Yuan, will you marry me when I'm 16? "Sure." Lin Feng vaguely saw a young man and a young girl. They were only 13 or 14 years old, the age when love first bloomed. The two grew up together as childhood sweethearts. Now, they were holding hands. The young man made a promise to the young girl. The young man was a genius, and countless people praised him as a genius that only appeared once every 100 million years. However, when he was 15, he accidentally entered a cave and found a black demonic pagoda inside. Isn't that the demonic pagoda that the Snow Clan suppressed? When he saw the demonic pagoda, Lin Feng's face was filled with shock. In the past, Lin Feng had helped the Snow Clan suppress the demonic pagoda. But in the end, the demonic pagoda still broke the seal and came out. The demonic pagoda had long been transformed into a powerful weapon cultivator, and its battle prowess was heaven-defying. The young man called Big Brother Yuan by the young girl. Ever since he obtained the demonic pagoda, his cultivation base had begun to fall. The young man discovered that the black demonic pagoda was the cause of his decline. He wanted to throw the pagoda away, but he couldn't do so. The black demonic pagoda had completely entangled the young man. This made the young man feel very helpless. Chapter 3894. The black demonic tower Lin Feng had seen back then was only a part of it because it had been split into two. Of course, Lin Feng had seen the other part of the black demonic tower later on. Both parts had given birth to their own gods and were trying to devour each other. However, neither could do anything to the other. Regardless of whether it was the first or second part of the black demonic tower, their cultivation was extremely terrifying. It was even rumored that the death of his ancestor, the fifth-generation demonic master, sky-devouring demonic master, and his son, the sky-devouring demonic emperor, was inextricably linked to the demonic tower. Lin Feng didn't know whether this was true or not, but since there was such a saying, then there was no such thing as a groundless rumor. Lin Feng's cultivation was still not strong enough. Once it was strong enough, he would be able to find the demonic tower and ask about these things. What will it take for you to let me go? The young man looked helplessly at the demonic tower, but it didn't do anything, nor did it respond to him. The young man's cultivation continued to fall until he had no more magic power left in his body. He became a cripple, from a genius youth to a cultivation trash, and became the target of ridicule for many people. Even the young woman's attitude towards him underwent a 180-degree change. On this day, the young woman came with a group of people. "This is the bracelet you gave me. I'm returning it to you." The young woman took out the token of love that the young man had given her back then and returned it to him. This was the reality of the world. Most of the time, it was so cruel that people were unwilling to accept what they saw. However, no one could change this cruel world. The young man smiled bitterly and accepted the bracelet. He didn't say anything because he knew that after becoming a cultivation trash, he and the young woman were destined to be in different worlds. A toad lusting after a swan will never happen. At least you know what's good for you. You made the right choice. A young man looked at the young man with a mocking expression. This young man was her new lover. This was a day filled with darkness for him. The girl who had been his childhood sweetheart had left him. This was a huge blow to him. He lay on a patch of grass and let the sun shine on his body. He really wanted to sleep like this forever and never wake up again. Brat, 8 or 9 out of 10 things in life don't go your way. Do you want to become stronger? If you want to become stronger, I can help you. A sinister voice resounded in the young man's mind. It's you. You're the one who made me like this. The young man took out the demonic pagoda and glared at it. The one who spoke was the spirit of the demonic pagoda. The demon pagoda's spirit said, "I understand your anger, but you are still too young. The love affairs of this world, and even glory and wealth, are all ephemeral. Only immortality and supreme power are things that men should pursue. If you have the ability, what kind of woman can't you get?" At that time, the peerless and magnificent fairies and goddesses of all ages will take the initiative to deliver themselves to my doorstep. How will you make me stronger? The young man asked. He had always had the temperament of an old man, especially after experiencing all kinds of mockery and ridicule over the years, which had caused him to change even more. "Isn't it easy to make you stronger? I will teach you a tyrannical devil art. This devil art is called the heaven-devouring devil art. It is a supreme devil art passed down from a devil lord." The demon pagoda's spirit said, "Is the devil lord very powerful?" The young man couldn't help but mutter. The corner of the demon pagoda's spirit's mouth twitched. Then He remembered that this young man came from a remote place and came from a small family. It was normal that he hadn't heard of the great Devil Lord. The young man then said, "The Devil Lord should be a devil cultivator, right? Everyone has the right to kill devil cultivators. If people find out that I've cultivated a devil art, I'm afraid I'll die without a grave." The demon pagoda's spirit said, "Hee, you can choose not to cultivate it. Of course, if you are willing to be a piece of trash, you can choose not to cultivate it." The young man's expression was uncertain. Finally, he nodded and agreed. The young man was worried that cultivating a devil art would implicate his people, so he left a letter saying that he was going out to train. Then he left with the demonic pagoda. After the young man cultivated the heaven-devouring devil art, he became unstoppable. At a young age, he became a supreme being and dominated the starry sky world. People called him Heaven-Devouring Devil Saint because the young man was a devil cultivator. He was called Heaven-Devouring Devil Saint. Many years later, Heaven-Devouring Devil Saint returned to the planet where he lived when he was young. The crowd surged and looked at Heaven-Devouring Devil Saint from afar. An old friend arrived. It was a woman dressed in white. She was lovely and moving. Many years passed. He saw her again. "Brother Yuan, is that you? You're back." When she saw him again, she was very happy. Who didn't know of Heaven-Devouring Devil Saint's reputation now? Back then, she found out that Heaven-Devouring Devil Saint was the young man who had sworn an oath of love with her when they were young but was abandoned by her in the end. She had a lot of regret in her heart. She went to his family, hoping to get in touch with him again through his family. However, his people had been taken away long ago. She originally thought that she would never see him again. Who would have thought that he would revisit this old place? Heaven-Devouring Devil Saint was surrounded by the upper echelons of this planet. He looked at her from afar. His expression was a little dazed. Too many things had happened to him over the years, just as the demon pagoda's spirit said when he became stronger. Naturally, countless fairies and goddesses would take the initiative to throw themselves at him. However, even so, he had never forgotten her. This kind of not forgetting was not because of love or hatred. Instead, it was because he missed those youthful days. Everyone only had one youth. Impudent, a mere lowly fox dares to offend Lord Heaven-Devouring Devil Saint? Are you tired of living? Someone scolded coldly. She was so scared that she kept quiet out of fear, because anyone who stood next to Heaven-Devouring Devil Saint had an unimaginable background and a frightening identity. She really regretted it. If she hadn't abandoned him back then, she would be standing next to him now. She would be an existence that countless people looked up to. This guy in front of her who dared to scold her must be just like a dog wagging its tail and begging for mercy. However, she was just like a dog in front of him now. "Let's go." Heaven-Devouring Devil Saint glanced at her and then said to the people next to him. Heaven-Devouring Devil Saint did not want to acknowledge her. His youthful days were long gone. Chapter 3895. The sky-devouring overlord was almost invincible under the starry sky, until one day someone came looking for him. The cultivator wore a wide, gray-colored robe and a bamboo hat which completely covered his face. Due to that, it was difficult to get a clear look at his appearance. "Who are you?" The sky-devouring overlord looked at the newcomer. The gray-robed cultivator had managed to sneak up on him without alerting the guards. This was enough to show how powerful the gray-robed cultivator was. "Take this." The gray-robed cultivator immediately attacked the sky-devouring overlord. The gray-robed cultivator opened his arms and slapped at the sky-devouring overlord. The sky-devouring overlord raised an eyebrow slightly. He stepped forward and slapped at the gray-robed cultivator as well. Bang! Along with a violent collision sound, the two attacks fiercely collided. A black hole appeared in the gray-robed cultivator's palm. It was about to devour the sky-devouring overlord. Demonic sky-devouring art. The sky-devouring overlord was shocked. He quickly circulated the demonic sky-devouring art as well. Their demonic sky-devouring art collided, and they were evenly matched in the end. The demonic sky-devouring art was a supreme demonic art created by Lin Feng's ancestor, the fifth demon lord. It was later passed down to his son, the sky-devouring demon emperor. The sky-devouring demon emperor perfected the demonic sky-devouring art, making it one of the greatest cultivation methods of this epoch. After the collision, neither side could do anything to the other. In the end, they both retreated. You also cultivate the demonic sky-devouring art. Could it be you're from that lineage? The sky-devouring overlord squinted at the gray-robed cultivator. The gray-robed cultivator took off his bamboo hat, revealing his face. His head was not a human head. It looked like a dragon, but it was neither a dragon nor an elephant. It was the head of a dragon elephant. I'm not from that clan, but I have a deep relationship with them. I'm here on my master's orders to invite you over. The creature from the dragon-esque elephant clan said, "Your master is from that clan?" The sky-devouring overlord asked. Yes, the dragon elephant nodded. Good. Give me 3 days to arrange everything. I will go with you to see your master. The heaven-devouring overlord said. No problem, the creature from the dragon-esque elephant clan replied. The image disappeared at this point, and Lin Feng's consciousness returned to the real world. Lin Feng found what he saw to be unbelievable. So, the sky-devouring demon saint had such a relationship with his ancestor. Strictly speaking, the sky-devouring demon saint could even be considered his ancestor's disciple. After all, he had obtained the legacy of ancestor Lin Feng. What happened after that? Lin Feng could not help but mutter to himself. He really wanted to know what happened after that. He also wanted to know which ancestor of his was the expert that the sky-devouring demon saint met. Lin Feng guessed that it was most likely the ancestor who had punched through the undying realm's barrier. Lin Feng also wanted to know how the heaven-devouring beast sage had fallen. He was so powerful, so how did he fall? Something unknown must have happened after that, because later on, even the traces of the ancestor who had punched through the undying realm were hard to find. After countless years, too many truths had been buried. It was destined that the future generations would never be able to find out the truth. It must be fate to be able to obtain the items left behind by the sky-devouring demon saint. It's a pity that I didn't manage to find the legacy of the sky-devouring demon saint. Could it be that the cave abode was not where the sky-devouring demon saint had fallen? Could it be that it was just a cave abode that the sky-devouring demon saint had once cultivated in? Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter to himself. He felt that the possibility of this conjecture was quite high. Then, among the items I obtained, is one of them related to the legacy of the sky-devouring demon saint? Lin Feng muttered to himself. Among the 5 items, the 9-spirit divine yang pill and the time crystal might not be related to the legacy of the sky-devouring demon saint, but the mysterious page, the jade pendant, and the bracelet might be related to the legacy of the sky-devouring demon saint. Of course, Lin Feng would have to find out in the future to find out what was going on. Lin Feng put away the bracelet, then exited his seclusion and continued heading deeper. Along the way, danger lurked everywhere. He could often see some extremely terrifying beasts roaming about. Lin Feng was even attacked by a few powerful beasts. However, the journey was more daunting than dangerous. In the end, Lin Feng arrived at the 9 demonic mountains. the 9 demonic mountains rose and fell continuously. The deeper one went into the 9 demonic mountains, the more dangerous it was. When Lin Feng arrived, many cultivators had already gathered at the periphery of the 9 demonic mountains. After asking around, Lin Feng found out that the nether spring would fly out during this period of time. Therefore, cultivators had a chance to obtain a portion of the nether spring. This was also the reason why so many cultivators took the risk to enter the underworld island. Lin Feng was a little tempted. If the nether spring could fly out, he would find a way to obtain some of it. He wanted to see if the nether spring's effects were as good as the legends said. Master Yuan Kong has already deduced that the nether spring will fly out within 3 days. A cultivator said. Many people were excited when they heard that. Everyone seemed to be very convinced by Master Yuan Kong's words. That's great. The nether spring is finally coming out. This time, we must obtain a portion of it. A cultivator said. He was very eager for the nether spring. One after another, experts arrived. There were even sovereigns who came. On this day, a group of people arrived. The person in the lead was an extremely old cultivator, Shunming Tsang. He's an expert from the ancient god clan. Some people were very shocked when they saw the old man. He was definitely an extremely ancient existence. It was said that his cultivation had reached the peak of the sovereign emperor realm. However, his lifespan was almost exhausted. Therefore, he had sealed himself in the Godstone a long time ago. His lifespan seems to be almost exhausted. Why did he break out of the Godstone and come out? Ask someone. They didn't understand what was going on. Even Lin Feng didn't understand what was going on. A cultivator who was about to exhaust his lifespan should not have broken out of the Godstone and come out. Once he came out, he would be in a very bad situation. It was said that the life force of these sealed Godstones far exceeded that of ordinary people. For example, an ordinary person could live for 1,000 years. However, the life force that came out of the Godstone was different.